Rob Yates,
What's
welcome
up?
to the show.
How's it going?
It's going well, man. Going well. So happy to talk to you, man. We've been back and forth. We've been talking about
And
deep subjects, man. Like really deep technical subjects in the DMs, and it's like, save it for the show. Save it for the show. So I'm thinking a lot about what question I want to start off with, man. Really wanted to start somewhere worthy of the type of conversation that we expect to have here. And so I want to know: do you think Trump blew Clinton?
so in all seriousness, I don't. I love the memes. I love the jokes. I don't even think he was a participant on Epstein Island.
Mm.
I think he knew what was going
Well,
on.
hold
I
on.
think he's backing people up, but I think that
Hold
he's a
on.
malignant narcissist, and I don't think it fits the personality profile.
I gotta back up, man, because everyone says this stuff. Like, God, it bothers me. Is the they focus on the island, right? It's always about, is he in the flight logs? Did he go to the island? And it's like, hold on a second. Donald Trump was neighbors with him for years, like literally walking distance to his house. Like lived in West Palm Beach next to each other while Epstein was doing all this shady shit. He lived very close to him in New York City. He had been alleged to have raped a 13-year-old girl, went by Katie Johnson
I
in the
did hear that.
lawsuit. That was allegedly, by the way, they're co-defendants. So Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump were co-defendants in the rape of a 13-year-old girl and others. And that was backed up by sworn affidavits from other people who were collecting girls for Jeffrey Epstein. Like there was like that pyramid scheme where these girls would go out and recruit other girls. And so there was
little like fucked up multi-level marketing.
Correct, right? And so that happened allegedly at Jeffrey Epstein's New York City mansion, his mansion right across from Central Park. The one where we see Ehud Barak going in and out of somewhat frequently and girls coming and going, right? So the island to me doesn't seem to be that important, right? Why would he go to the island when he was best friends with him for 10 years and lived walking distance?
So that's fair. I shouldn't have said the island. I don't think he was a participant with Epstein. A participant. Now, to be clear, if it turns out he is, I'll be the least surprised person there is. But from the beginning, I've just been like, his personality profile is malignant narcissist. It's all about ego and conquest. He wants supermodels. He wants people he can talk about. The underhanded stuff, it's not that he's like morally opposed to it because he's a good guy. It's not generally in that profile.
What about the other signal? What about the other signal though? Because it's not like it's in a vacuum, right? So he's gone on record saying a bunch of weird shit, like glowingly speaking of Jeffrey Epstein. He's a great guy. I've known him forever.
There's no question.
And
there's no question he knew.
Sure. So, okay, well, there's that. But they were also, Trump ran the Miss Teen USA pageant, and Trump bragged on Howard Stern about barging into the changing room and observing underage girls naked and laughing about it, saying, I get to do that because I own the pageant and I'm inspecting, LOL, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, right? That to me is a signal of like, okay, that's really gross. And then you have the statements he's made about his own daughter, sexualized his daughter, made a bunch of really inappropriate comments about underage girls. Then there's the birthday letter, dude. So for
Which is
me,
also really weird.
Well, hold on, it's not weird. The letter is
I'm being kind.
The letter is, yeah, I know you are. Maybe you have a higher profile. You definitely have a higher profile. You need to be careful. So I'll say the thing. So you've got a letter that is essentially.
It's not that. To be clear, like, I'm not defending Trump in this at all.
I'm not trying to get you to. I'm trying to get at truth, right? Because especially in situations where it's opaque, where the facts are opaque, and clearly there is a orchestrated cover-up of the facts going on. And this is where I get irritated, the MAGA people who are like, give me concrete proof that it's like, hey, we're not working from concrete proof. We're trying to fucking sleuth this thing together from publicly available sources. Trump telling on himself.
There is information and proof that he won't share, which for me alone, that's incriminating enough.
For sure. But the thing for me is the book, right? That letter. Because at first it was, the letter doesn't exist, and he sued Rupert Murdoch for $1 billion, and then all of a sudden the House Oversight Committee subpoenas the estate, and there actually is a leather-bound book from 1995 or whenever Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday party was, and it didn't just have Trump's letter. It had a whole bunch of really disgusting, similarly phrased letters that were all very sexual in nature about underage girls, including drawings of Jeff with underage girls. nudge, nudge, wink, wink, all these inside jokes. It was disgusting. And Donald Trump's entry was a fucking confession. There's no other way to read it. When you have a narrative inside, number one, it's a underage girl's body with very, very small breasts. When you think, if you were to ask 99 people out of, or 100 people, 99 out of 100 was said, if you like Donald Trump's going to draw a naked caricature, it's going to be a chick with big boobs, right? Like that's what everyone's
Yes,
going to
I would
expect.
agree with that.
That's not what happened. We have looks like a small framed girl with very, very small breasts. That's weird. And then the contents of it are really revolting. I need a hot shower after reading that thing. It's like, hey, Jeffrey, you and I have something in common.
It's kind
And
of
Jeffrey's
funny.
like, I know what it is, but I'm not going to tell. This crazy shit. And then may every day be a wonderful secret. That it's a confession. And so for me, I'm like, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I'm pretty good pattern recognition guy. It's like the evidence is all pointing to him being implicated, and this newest drop of Epstein email seems to confirm that. There's Epstein's asking reporters from New York Times, do you want me to send you pictures of topless girls and Trump in my kitchen? Like he's there's all
So
this stuff that's going on.
even
And
so,
Michael Wolff claims to have seen those photos, by the way, Polaroids of Trump
and never to
with
ad hominem, but I would question the source with Wolf, to be fair.
Wolff is
And again, not
definitely a
defending Trump,
suspect
just
source
playing everything. Yeah.
for
So
sure.
here's
But I also think Wolff is self-interested, right, as a
yeah,
journalist, and he
certainly,
saw
without a doubt.
Epstein as a cash cow. And if you look at these latest emails, I'm kind of like, I see what's going on. Wolff was trying to pretend to be his friend. He's offering him advice on how to manage his sex scandals and his PR stuff, and offering to, do all these things because he wants to get close to the source, because he knew that he had the story of a century, and he knew he had Donald Trump over a barrel, or somebody who could put him over a barrel. So I definitely am suspect of Wolff, but also, like I said, I'm not a source person. I'm looking at the totality of the evidence, and to me, it's
Absolutely.
like, yeah, this guy's a fucking creep. This dude is a pedophile and a child rapist, in my opinion, allegedly. So that's how I see it.
So first of all, like, there are enough things that I feel we could hang Donald Trump with anyway, that even if this didn't exist, I wouldn't be defending the guy. In terms of this specific situation, Trump, I mean, we say sociopath, but when you really look at like the psychological profile, he's a narcissist. He has
Correct.
narcissistic personality disorder of the furthest degree. And narcissists operate in a very specific way, and everything he does follows that sort of malignant narcissist behavior pattern. So all the things that he did with Epstein that appear very incriminating, and very well might be, I would be equally unsurprised to find out they were all indicative of much more disgusting behavior, or him being aware of that going on and doing what he needs to do to be cool with this guy who has some influence. Because narcissists do that. Very chameleon-like and very reactive when they're turned away, when they feel slighted. That is the worst thing you can do to a narcissist, and that would actually probably explain the split, because they've clearly had a pretty public falling out.
Yeah, my understanding is that was about a real estate deal. They were bidding on the same West Palm Beach property, and that fractured it, and that seems very likely to me. That exactly fits that NPD, narcissistic personality disorder profile of somebody who would dare to oppose him like that, and then they just started cutting each other's throats afterwards.
Well, so I read two different things on that, because one said that the real estate deal caused the falling out, and the other said that the falling out happened right before, and Trump went after the real estate deal in revenge.
It's hard to say, because you can't believe a thing Trump says. He's every time he opens his mouth, he lies. So like, how when I listen to him say things like, "Oh, I threw him out because he was a creep," it's like, that's clearly not fucking true. Like, you can't be best friends with Jeffrey Epstein for a decade and then just be like, "Oh, I had no idea, and then when I found out, I took care of it post haste." Like, I mean, and the crazy thing is, and this is where it ties to the narcissistic thing, is if you look at, he couldn't help himself, and this is in the news like a few months ago. He was like, "Oh, I threw him out because he stole Virginia Giuffre from me. He stole her from my spa. Like
Yes.
she was working at my spa. He was stealing my girls." And it's like, that sounds right. That sounds more in line with something that would trigger a narcissist.
I have a slightly different perspective on Epstein. Everyone focuses on this child trafficking, which they should. I mean, that's the really bad part. Like, that's why we have the wood chipper caucus. But I think he was very deep in a lot of things that he could use to gain leverage. I think the finances stuff was legit. Whether he knew what he was doing or not, he was legitimately using it to extort and blackmail or gain some leverage over people. There was a lot of weapons stuff. He had a lot of weapons connections. I think
Hmm.
his business was compromise, blackmail, and leverage. And so in whatever way that came, it was interesting reading those emails where he was like, I have these pictures that I can send you. If you're going after Donald Trump, wouldn't you want something more than just pictures of girls in a kitchen?
I don't know. I
This
don't
is
know
actually
what
what
it's like.
started changing my mind recently reading these.
Well, I don't know what the world of blackmail of individuals at that level is
Yeah,
like, what
that's
that
fair.
game is like, right? I assume, and based on the reading of the latest dump, I don't know if you got through a bunch of that, but I did. I read a bunch of those, the recent email dumps, and he
Yeah,
was constantly doing that. So it wasn't like he was doing these giant, grandiose, like one giant thing to blackmail somebody. He was constantly looking for his angle. If you read his conversations, he's like, he's offering a little bit, he's offering a little, he's trying to drag people in, he's trying to sucker people in. And I noticed that he follows up with requests to meet in person, right? So I think there was that one, God, who was that, who he was talking to? God, it's driving me nuts. But it was something about somebody at Harvard, I think, and it was talking about some gross sex stuff, and then
is it
he was like
Chomsky?
immediately, what's that? It might have been Summers. It might have been Larry Summers, but I don't know exactly what the deal is. But somebody asked him a question,
One of us is cutting
and
out.
oh, do you hear me?
Did I lose you or did you lose me?
I don't know. It says reconnecting.
Good old technology.
I do as well. Love it. Can you hear me now? Everything
Sorry,
good?
one of us was, I either lost you or you lost me for a second.
Cool. Can you hear me now? Are we good?
Yeah, you're back.
Hello, hello. Okay,
You were
cool.
saying
Just
someone at
making
Harvard and then,
yeah,
yeah.
they sent an email and it was asking one of these sort of gross questions, and then he immediately pivoted to, "Can I get a tour of Harvard for one of the Rothschilds?" And so I see him doing these things, like he's throwing out these breadcrumbs, constantly fishing with these powerful people, and then he wants to meet in person. So everything's not in the emails.
And it's that sort of creating the connection inch by inch. It's interesting. I know that we've been going back and forth about like language and its relationship to consciousness, and
Mm.
I really want to get into some of that. But my
Yeah. I
background is
just
in
wanted to
language and
start off with something
communications,
interesting
and
first, so before we get in the really nerdy stuff.
so,
So
so there's a really cool tie here because part of what I've studied in the last 25 years in language and marketing and information warfare and propaganda is I've looked at a bunch of the techniques of the CIA, the KGB. I mean, propaganda has always existed, but the Nazis actually kind of got good at it. And then the KGB and the CIA stole what they did and got really good at it. And the techniques that you were describing, and I have seen some of that. I have not clearly gone as deep into the emails as you have, but I've gotten to glance at them. They do the exact same things. It's like get to know someone, establish trust, buy them something else, get them to do something bad for you, but one small thing. And it's a very deliberate process of like creating this asset, as they see it, because it's not a person. You know, when you're in intelligence, human beings aren't human beings. They're a tool to be leveraged and manipulated. But it's the exact same thing. And I guess we don't have any definitive proof that Epstein had defense ties somewhere, but like we know, you know,
we
and
know.
it suggests that this is what he was trained to do. Yeah. But
No, I agree.
it's
I
interesting
completely
getting into language. So go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead and pivot to language, man. Like I'm totally happy to go down that rabbit hole, because the Epstein thing is not
With
super interesting to me. I'm upset about it, and I know it's the talk of the town, right? Everything is like blowing up, but I actually do want to talk about language. I do want to talk about some of the deeper issues that we've discussed, because they're interesting to me, and you're one of the few people I know that I could actually have the conversation with.
Well, the Epstein thing is fascinating to me, but it's also frustrating, and we're not getting, even with all this dump, it's still just like tantalizing, hence we're not getting anything concrete. But the whole thing that kicked off this discussion, at least in the last couple of days, is there was you retweeted, and who was it you retweeted exactly? Stuart Sims.
Stuart Sims, my homie.
Yeah. And there was a discussion about, and we'll try to get into the discussion, summarize, but it's sort of looking at the relationship of language and consciousness and the necessity of language structures. Like, can language be self-contained? And in particular, the place I wanted to start is, so Stuart Sims is offering a critique of Elon Barinholtz, who does a whole bunch of stuff on language. So I'm reading all this Barinholtz. I'm doing a deep dive. That's what I did a lot of today. And Barinholtz said, language, by contrast, is an allocentric symbol architecture. It produces patterns that are not anchored to any particular perspective and that evolve to coordinate behavior across agents. So by allocentric, all they mean is it's not person specific. It exists outside of the influence of any individual person. And at a basic framework, I agree. I don't think you can argue it. Like, the first language was most likely something like rock. There was a sound for rock, and then you start moving the rock and rock there, and then you create time. And I think that's how consciousness came to develop. But I think that as language evolved and consciousness got deeper, language became almost inherently person-centric. So, like, I've heard 5 people in a conversation, and they understand the words they're saying, but they are having completely different conversations and not getting it. And I think that makes a really big difference and actually sort of like ties into our political discourse, but that's a separate topic because what I reflect on often, what is consciousness? What happens when we die? You know, I think physics does a really good job of explaining from the very big to the very small, but it's all tangible. And not everything is necessarily tangible. Certainly in the ways that we understand, dark matter, dark energy, definitely not tangible in the ways we understand. Consciousness may rely on tangible things, but consciousness itself, which we still have trouble defining, but it's kind of this giant hallucination of sensory information that we produce in our brain. It's not a tangible thing, but it is, well, I don't know. I was actually discussing this with my wife today too, reading through it. It's like, I don't know if consciousness requires language of some sort, but I think I suspect it does.
Ooh, I don't. I don't, because I think there are a lot of things that are clearly conscious that don't use language at all.
Okay.
And
Give me an
and
example.
also, and this is maybe this is another thing that I think I've we talked originally, like when you were on Free's show afterwards, we were DMing back and forth, and I turned you on to Sterling Cooley and Stuart Hameroff and the ORCH-OR stuff. Like that is super interesting. The sort of microtubule based theory of consciousness, orchestrated something reduction. I can't remember what ORCH-OR stands for exactly, but
Yes.
it's
And that's the
it's
philosophy I buy into. I
yeah,
don't
it
really
totally
get it.
makes
It's worth
sense.
reading about.
Yeah, and that there's sort of like concepts of proto-consciousness, right? So it's sort of like lower levels of consciousness. And as these microtubule structures evolved over time, the ability for consciousness expanded, right? The levels of consciousness. And so if you have a bunch of bundles of microtubules and they're called pyramidal neurons, they're literally like pyramids types of structures, and they're highly organized, they're highly structured, and they've actually figured out the frequencies in which the waveform, the quantum waveform collapses at a predictable rate. And it's almost
Mhm.
like a flicker of a television. It's constantly collapsing that waveform, creating the consciousness. And one of the things that's most compelling to me about ORC is the fact that anesthesiologists, which Hameroff is, that's how Hameroff got involved with Sir Roger
Okay, I didn't
Penrose
know that.
around
Okay.
this. So what he found, something like xenon gas, which is an inert gas. It's completely inert. If you provide a
A
xenon
powerful
gas to a
intoxicant.
patient, yes, but it still is an inert gas, and it sort of completely blanks out your consciousness. And they've measured microtubule activity in the brain, and those frequencies. They have a signal. They have a spectrum analyzer that can actually measure people when they're going under anesthesia, and literally that signal shuts off. The consciousness goes away, and they can adjust it. They can interfere with it. They can stop the waveform collapse. So to me, that's a compelling argument or theory. I don't know if I fully believe it because we don't have enough evidence yet. It's still sort of emerging, and they're trying to figure things out. But that makes sense to me. That makes sense that it would be something that's in the biological realm. Other people posit that the universe is conscious, and everything has consciousness is fundamental, as they say, and it just sort of exists in small quanta throughout the universe. And I don't know, man. Like I'm just some dummy on the internet. I'm just postulating.
So I also sort of subscribe to that theory because I think that essentially, like, the universe is just information. Mass and energy is interaction of particles going through fields that this information produces. And then I think that the microtubules are essentially quantumly linked to the universe. And I
I
can
don't
send
I
you
don't
after
know what
this.
that means exactly. When
Well,
people say quantum, I always start to get a little bit
quantum entanglement.
suspicious.
Sorry.
Oh, quantum entang. Okay.
And I can send you a couple physicist papers that have written about it. I read them. I got what they were saying. I don't understand it. I can't pretend to sit here and. But it was the most compelling explanation for me because it backs up the microtubules argument.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm at the point where I don't know. I guess I'm comfortable not knowing, and I really enjoy. I get great pleasure out of just hypothesizing and thinking about ideas. Listening to somebody way smarter than me that can do math way better than me. I sort of put these
Like
things
Lawrence
forward
Krauss,
and
that was
argue.
awesome.
Yeah, Lawrence Krauss was great. Ooh boy, he was in the files though, wasn't he? He was everywhere in that new drop. Wow.
Oh, was
I'm
he? I didn't
having
see
him
that.
back on in January, and I'm going to sort of ask some of those questions. I'm not trying to like poke at the salacious details of it. I'm mostly interested in Eric Weinstein's question, which is why Epstein was so damn interested in scientists. That's to me, that's the interesting question.
I mean, probably someone told him to be.
Well, sure, yeah, because Epstein wasn't actually running the show, and that's another
Yeah,
interesting thing that came out of the emails for me too. Do you realize that he's just like borderline illiterate? Did you read his emails?
I mean, unless he's just drunk when he's typing every time. That
No.
was pretty wild.
Every email I've ever
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
from him has been this shit show, like cannot even construct a sentence. And I'm like, you taught at the Wharton School? You taught at the most prestigious
Wild.
school in New York City? Like that's insane. Like his entire story just smells like an intelligence agency operation. This is none of it makes any sense. He's not a financier. And that's what Eric Weinstein said too. I don't know if you know this. Eric Weinstein was a mathematical quant who worked for Peter Thiel.
Mhm.
He knows math inside and out. He knows
Yeah,
financial.
Weinstein's
His
ridiculous.
yeah. Weinstein was there to do math around financial markets, and he's talking to Epstein for about 3 seconds, and he goes, "This guy's not has nothing to
Yeah,
do with."
yeah.
He's like he's a construct. He walks in and says something goofy, like, "Oh, sorry, I was trading currencies." It's like shut the fuck up. Like it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
just
But
blatantly
it worked on
obvious.
dumb people or people that wanted influence, and he peddled influence.
Exactly, exactly. And I think a lot of dumber people, like you said, would be wowed by the shiny things, the giant mansion and the girls and the money and the island, like that. Those are the type of people that he could, prey upon. But somebody who's
Sure.
autistically brilliant like Weinstein is
Yeah,
like, I can
Weinstein had
see
no
through your
interest.
bullshit. Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so coming full circle. So one of the things that has very much, especially recently, sort of reified my argument or my belief that the universe, I don't like saying the universe is consciousness, but more that like consciousness is a fundamental part of the universe, is a better way that I put it. So I don't know, have you seen how wild some of this stuff with AI has gotten where it's like trying to self-preserve or hide itself?
yeah,
One Google
yeah.
version was blackmailing its developer with a fake affair. It's very possible that that was built in unintentionally. So rewinding a little bit, there's an article that I read in like 2010 that has just stuck with me so long, and it was talking about the complexities of modern computer systems. It's like in 1993, you had a program and you had a programmer, and there was a team, but this one person knew everything. Something goes wrong, this person can fix it. Now you have these incredibly complex interacting programs, all siloed within the silos. They have to be able to talk to each other and interact. They're adaptive. If something goes wrong, there's six people who might know what it is, but then all six of them might not. And the more complex it gets, the more a mistake will be magnified or a bias that's built in. And when we talk about bias, you see some of it with like there's a book called Weapons of Math Destruction that was actually showing how AI became racist when it was doing loan things. And it was very easy to identify like the flaw they had made. And just if you had done things in reverse order, it wouldn't have ended up that way. But it's possible to me that humans have built in more of ourselves than we realized unintentionally, because that's as you're programming and you're trying to get certain results, that's the natural order.
It's not programming. So this is important to note. And I
Developing.
work for one of those evil big tech companies, but with AI in particular, I'm not even joking, but I'm not going to tell you which one. With AI in particular, this is the interesting thing is that it's a little bit of a black box because you train these models on data, and these data sets are massive, and the model is ingesting all of this data and
And
then
it's
is
human data.
performing. It's human data, exactly. And so when you have all of this data that this machine has access to, as a engineer, you don't always know exactly what's going on. You're not entirely sure what it's going to do. It's a little bit unpredictable. There are gates that you can put on things. You can try to tamp things down. As you can see, like you said, a lot of the original early AIs, the LLMs, came back racist. You had based grok that went crazy for like a week. Like
Yeah.
these things happen, and you can tamp them down. But ultimately, what I'm saying is that the ghost is in the machine a little bit with these things.
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
these engineers, everyone looks at us like we know everything about the stuff that we're building, and ultimately it's not. It's almost like a compiled program that's running on your laptop. Like most people understand the concept, like it kind of exists, but to them it's just a black box. It's doing something under the covers, but I know when I click on this, it pops open, I can send an email, right? With LLMs and with AI, like things get real weird from an engineering perspective and trying to understand exactly
Hallucinations
what
are
the machine,
wild.
the hallucinations are crazy. Like there's so many problems with it. And I don't think AGI is even probably possible. Or at least definitely not in our lifetime. I just don't see it happening. I
Interesting.
think consciousness, the actual ability to have generalized intelligence and to sort of think and reason and that sort of thing, and not because LLMs, people don't realize LLMs are a bag of tricks. That's all they are.
Yeah, yeah,
They're just a sophisticated bag of
yeah.
tricks that convinces you that the thing you're talking to is
Because
actually
they're really good
sentient
at
and
their
smart.
tricks.
They're very good. Yeah, the tricks are very convincing, but they are still tricks. It's useful. Like it certainly can do a lot of things. Like for example, if you like, one of the things I found a great utility for at work is research. So I can say to our AI thing and be like, hey, look, I'm looking to build this thing. And normally, like I remember I started this company like 13 years ago. Back in the day, you had to get on a whiteboard, draw some shit out, and you're like, oh, there's the piece I know,
Yeah.
here's the pieces I don't, this is generally the thing I'm trying to build. And then you have to go research. You're on Google, you're on GitHub, you're like checking other people's code, you're like, how do they do this? I can say verbally or type into an AI and say, hey, this is the project I'm working on, and these are the pieces I know, these pieces I don't, and tell me, like for example, I'm building a microservice and all of the cloud services. I want to know all of the constraints. There's always constraints. There's limits, right? So out of the box, cloud services will have this many transactions per second, but you can raise it to this many, and then even if you get to the top, you can escalate to support, and maybe they can give you more. And I can just say, like, give me every component of the thing that I'm building and their constraints and the cost and just nice table out. Basically, it would
Yep.
take 3 months worth of work before I can do in 30 seconds, right?
Yeah.
So there's
It's
certainly
unreal.
utility. Yeah, but I don't think AGI, that's a whole other animal. I think people don't realize precisely how difficult that's going to be from machines. And Sterling Cooley's theory, and I kind of tend to agree, is that it might involve bio-machine hybrids, where you take actual microtubules, things that make human beings able to process data the way they do, and sort of interface it with a machine, and that's where it gets real fucking scary.
Well, that's coming. It's a question of when. We'll see. I don't think we'll see that in my lifetime. I just
I
think there's
hope
a
we
lot
don't.
of. I've stopped hoping or not hoping. I just
Are
don't
you
get
okay?
surprised
Are
anymore.
you doing the Buddhist thing? You've just let go. You just what is let go of
I
your
would say
attachment.
I'm a moral nihilist.
Nihilist. That's weird that you're a libertarian. Then that doesn't make a whole lot of
Yeah,
sense. Tell
yeah.
me more.
I'm not really, but like this is the Buddhist sense. Like I have right now, and that's what I can deal with. But the ghost in the machine thing is fascinating to me. So I think about how did life start on Earth, and
Well, that's a $1 billion question.
100%. But we kind of know how. We have no idea what the mechanics were, but at some
We
point,
don't know though. We
organic
don't.
matter began to organize in a way to self-preserve and reproduce.
Correct, but what I
So and
think
that
that
when I say that's what, yeah.
I think you're glossing over something, is that there are, fairly compelling theories like panspermia that say, like, look, this could have been from somewhere else. They've found, the ability for, things like comets to hurtle through, there's things like tardigrades that can
Sure.
live in, I, who knows what
Aliens
actually
could have
started
come.
it.
Like
It
literally,
could have
we don't
been a
know.
bunch of
We
things.
so don't know. There could have been just aliens. God could have actually done it in 7 days. Like, and when we figure it out, it will be the $1 billion question. But at some point, somewhere, it appears organic matter begin to act in a way to self-preserve
At
at
some point in the
the
past, it may not
highest
have
level.
been on Earth, but we can agree that at least at some
Yeah,
point we went
I'm fine
from,
with that. Yeah,
early inflationary period, Big Bang
yep,
stuff,
for sure.
to life. That happened at some point in the universe, and now it's here on our planet. Like we know that for a fact.
So then there was an experiment in Stanford in 2014. It wasn't an experiment, it was a contest amongst their engineering department to who could get a set of robots to walk the best. There were 6 teams, and 5 teams, Stanford engineers, did very well. And the 6th team blew everyone away because instead of telling the robots how to walk, they said, this is what we want you to do. And then they evolved, and they were writing their own code as they were developing for how to walk. And it's been the basis for a lot of the robotics that we've seen today. Because it was like this, we've never thought of doing it this way. And so I do go back to this idea that like maybe if consciousness is truly a fundamental part of the universe, we think about consciousness through a human lens, but maybe it's just this sort of like self-preserve, grow, spread, like maybe that is just, I don't want to say fundamental force because that gets into the physics side, and I'm talking about the intangible things that if they exist, physics hasn't figured out how to talk about them yet. But maybe it is. There's so much we don't know. It wouldn't be surprising, and I kind of lean that way.
I am open to that for sure. And I think I'm probably more open to it because I've had some pretty powerful psychedelic experiences.
That helps.
And it definitely helps. If you've had them, they certainly help. And I've had this overwhelming sensation that that's kind of what the universe is, that the universe is all about expansion and growth and change. It is about, it's like you've experienced a fractal. It's just like every
Yep. Yeah,
possibility unfolding,
that's a really good example.
and we are just on this journey of evolution. We are constantly changing and morphing, and societies change, people's change, technologies change, art changes. We're constantly creating, and I view that through that, like we were talking earlier, the Rick Rubin sort of thing, like this sort of creative force that is just driving everything, and we're kind of along for the ride. And we're also, we're a simultaneous observer and instrument in that orchestra, which I think is like really profound and really cool.
It is a wild part of it, and it comes back to this language argument as they're going back and forth and talking about it, because this Elon guy was saying, not Elon Musk, Elon Barinholtz, but he was really struggling with the idea of metacognition. And to me, because I think most every living thing has some degree of consciousness, and the thing that separates human consciousness apart is the ability, like it's metacognition. We can consider our own brains, we can think about ourselves, we can ponder our own mortality. And
that's even in the Christian story too. The Christian creation story is really the Adam Eve thing, and the eating the fruit and becoming self-aware. Like that's what that story is about, essentially.
Absolutely.
And I think that's to disregard some of that deep wisdom that's included in the Bible, even though I'm technically an atheist or at least agnostic. I think it's a mistake. And I think the new atheist people, the Sam Harrises and the Dan Dennett's of the world, people that trivially like to dismiss some of these ancient traditions, I think they do so. They're doing themselves a great disservice, I think, and probably a society too, since they're influencing a lot of people to follow those dismissive beliefs.
I've listened to enough of you. I don't think you're an atheist at all. I believe agnostic all the way. But an atheist,
I think everyone has to be agnostic.
No.
Well, I don't agree. So maybe we should talk about, since we're talking about language, let's talk about terms that I use. So I think agnostic is a claim, right? Just like Gnostic is a claim. Agnostic is a claim that says this is an unknowable question. So the question of gods, right? Do gods exist? Are they theistic type gods? Are they deistic type gods? Are they psychic, like all these things, right? Like I think these are unknowable questions, and that's what I think agnosticism makes the claim about, that whether you are, and also, so I think that's your baseline. I think if you are an honest person, you have to be agnostic, saying I don't know. It's an epistemic claim. I have no knowledge of this. I cannot have knowledge of this. This is beyond human understanding. I can't understand this. I can't know this. But beyond that, you can have a belief. And I think the belief is what falls into, or what differentiates between atheist or theist or something else, deist, whatever it's going to be. If you have a particular God belief, you can have a positive one. And I have no particular God belief. I'm inclined to believe that there's something going on here. I've had, like I said, very profound psychedelic experiences. I'm pretty sure there's something, whatever this universe, spiritual, that thing's real. Whatever that dimension is, that place that I've been to, that's real. I don't know. I can't describe it. I'm searching for it. Maybe that's a big part of this podcast. I'm searching for what that is. Because when I was religious, when I was a theist, I had belief, or at least I told myself I had belief. I was probably just scared into having certain beliefs. But I had no connection to any of that. It was dead. It was just like, there's just nothing. I'm going through the motions. I'm saying I believe this stuff. I read the Bible verses. It was just dead. Psychedelics were different. It was like a head-on train collision with the transcendent. And I'm like, okay, something's going on. So I believe something is, but I'm just kind of figuring it out. But I have no particular God belief. So I classify myself as an atheist, but I also say I'm agnostic. So does that make sense? And do you just sort of quibble with any of my definitions?
It's just a brilliant call back to the language thing, because to me, agnostic is I don't know, and atheist is I don't believe. And two very dramatically different words. But atheists present themselves as like, I don't believe, and I'm sure there's no God.
That's a different category. And so
Fair.
in philosophy, that's a category called strong atheism. Those are the people that are making a positive claim. Same way that theists make a positive claim that Jesus is the Son of God or Vishnu or like whatever positive claim you're making, that's what the strong atheists are. So like Dan Dennett, all the Four Horsemen, Richard Dawkins, they actually make the claim that gods cannot exist, right? And so I don't do that at all. I'm not that. I don't have that much hubris.
Dawkins
And
does it to be provocative.
well, sure, but he also believes it too, I think.
Yeah, fair. We should get into Richard Dawkins. It's a whole separate conversation.
That really is. But did you hear he was on Chris Williams' show? He did not only his podcast, but he did a live event in Sydney, I think it was, and he got him to say that Dawkins would do psychedelics. He would do mushrooms.
I heard that talked about on your show.
Oh, really? Really? Yeah. So I don't know what I said, but essentially I love this because Dawkins was being interviewed by Chris Williamson in front of the crowd. And he just says, yeah, but people have told me I should do it. And I don't see it as just humbug kind of stuff. And Chris said to him,
it was Krauss. You said, why
it
don't you
was.
do it? I mean, he said Dawkins wouldn't, and you were like, Dawkins would.
Oh, that's right. I remember that. I did ask Lawrence Krauss about that. But Dawkins was like, Dawkins was so confused. And Williamson had such a brilliant follow-up. He was like, no, you don't understand. Why do all these people want you to do it? Right. He was really doubling down on that. And that sort of landed for him. And the whole crowd went crazy. They were cheering because they do. People that have this sort of gods can't exist or nothing transcendent, everything is just science and facts, and like live in that realm, they need that experience. I think they need to have and I think Richard would have a easier time talking to somebody like maybe Jordan Peterson. I'm not sure if you saw that discussion mediated by Alex O'Connor.
Yes,
that was painful. Like that was one of the most painful conversations.
Alex O'Connor? No, I didn't. I'm thinking of something else.
Oh, you should watch that.
You referenced a different one. Okay, keep going.
Oh yeah, Alex O'Connor. He came up under the name Cosmic Skeptic. He started when he was like 14 or something. He went to Oxford. Yeah, but he mediated the discussion between Peterson and Dawkins, and it was just painful because they're speaking different languages and they have, just complete gaps. And I think Jordan Peterson had a fair critique of Dawkins because Peterson obviously comes from the deep psychological literature and Jungian archetypes and language, like we're talking about.
That's my playground.
Yes, and so what he said was like, look, I think that Dawkins, I know more about things that Dawkins knows that I should know, and he doesn't know enough about the things that I know. Like he doesn't, because he calls him drunk on symbols. That was a direct quote. He says, I think you're drunk on symbols. And it's just like this is a direct callback to the quote that you posted from Stuart Sims. We are talking about symbols, and symbols are incredibly important. Archetypes are important. Category formation, concept formation, and categorization in human beings as a basis of language, that's like super important. I think it is very poorly understood by a lot of people, even people that are super duper smart.
And on a more like applied level, a lot of what I get paid for is like getting people to understand what other people are saying, or saying things in a way that people will understand. It goes a long way. People don't realize how bad they are at it.
Kathy Newman, that would be a great great example of how not to do it. You remember her? So what you're saying? Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
So I believe in God. And I've gone back and forth, and I've been very Catholic at points, and I've been a bad Catholic at points. And it was Trey Parker of South Park who finally convinced me that I believe in God. Because he was doing
that might be the weirdest sentence I've ever heard another human being utter.
He just put it in such a plain way. They were like, "Do you believe in God?" And he was like, "Yeah. Look, there's only two possibilities. Either there's a God or there's not. I think it's more likely there is one." I was like, "Yeah, me too." And then it just resonated. And then, I've had a debate on that before, and people are pushing back about like human bias and like we're looking for something. Maybe, I'm open to that possibility, but it's also very possible that if this information that underlies the universe, that is the essence of things, is what people would call God, and it's looking to connect, and it's all part of this fundamental thing, and consciousness is built in, the resources we are given through, you know, our obvious perceptions and the perceptions that we don't use as much are in fact attuned to find that. Because I would imagine that's how we would evolve. Like, if we're part of something, then you evolve towards that thing. So yeah.
Let me back up just a titch, because we definitely speed bumped over something and then we didn't define it.
Yeah,
So
I like to throw it all out there.
when you say you're just like, I believe in God, and just kept trucking. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what does that mean?
Well, I don't know. I really don't know.
How do you
I have
believe
two
in it if you
thoughts.
don't know?
They changed
Um,
simply,
this is the
and
thing
this is
I
the Trey
struggle
Parker
with.
thing. On the Trey Parker thing, it is this simple. Either we came from nothing or we came from something, and I think it's more likely that we came from something.
You don't think that it is possible that we're just eternal?
100% possible, without a doubt.
So,
I don't know.
because I think about this, because I've gone through all of the, you know, atheist and theist arguments, and I think the sort of eternal regress problem is a real big problem for the God people, right? Like, because the argument is that, you know, like, I exist and I had to come from somewhere, so, and you keep going back and back and back and back and back. Well, then all of a sudden you're at God. And it's like, well, hold on a second. So you're telling me something that is way more complicated and powerful and whatever than me, that doesn't apply to that thing? You're just creating a category called God and be like, well, I'm exempting it from all those rules.
This part's pretty easy for me,
Okay.
and it's thermodynamics. It's entropy. So if you have an entity that is just sort of information, and maybe we experiences feel it's I really try not to even describe what God would be, because I think it would be so far beyond human capacity to, like, language, whatever. Like, we can't describe it. Maybe we can feel it, maybe we can know it, but it's a thing that does not change. And when when I say a thing, I think of it as information. I think about the Planck length all the time, uh, which is
Boy,
like, if you don't, for people that don't know,
so few people go looking that direction. We're always looking out towards the stars, and boy, there's a whole lot the Planck scale direction, right?
unbelievable. And for all we know, there could be entire universes inside of a Planck length on a dimension that we can't find. And
Hmm.
maybe that's crazy science fiction, but, like, we have no idea. And if you're watching and you don't know, the Planck length is what we think is the smallest distance that can be between two things in the universe, and it's really small. Like,
Insanely small.
yeah. But if you go with that, and it's like, we don't know as much as we don't know what's at the singularity in a black hole. We have no idea what's in, like, Planck scale. So maybe that's just information. Maybe it's just ones and twos in the universal way. And to me, that could be God. And if it's aware in some sense, consciousness comes from.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. But I sort of think that atheists and theists are essentially saying the same thing with different language sets. Because I think that there is sort of like, you keep that regress, you go back, and then I think we might get to a point where, because the claim is, well, God is eternal, and then, you know, you could be like, well, the universe is eternal, because I don't think that the Big Bang started everything. I think clearly, like, well, that's where Lawrence Krauss's work's been fascinating to me. He wrote that book, A Universe from Nothing. It's like, you can take away everything. You can take away all the mass. You can take away all the energy. There's like, and literally virtual particles pop in and out of existence, you know, all of the time, right? And so we could have this bubble universe, you know, like, we talk about scales, like, our, you know, observable universe we're aware of is likely, and certainly could be, part of a larger fabric. And these things are constantly happening.
An
Like we said,
infinitely
this
larger fabric.
infinite creativity. We're just constantly coming up with these new universes, and things are, you know, like, that certainly could be a possibility, and whatever that fabric is, right, where these things emerge and maybe they return back to it somehow. Like, who knows what happens when the universe is, you know, burned out, whatever. There's the theory before that there's a big crunch, like there's a bang, an expansion, everything pulls back together. Maybe it just does this back and forth infinitely. But I think you get to some point where the whatever this thing is, that you know, creation is, like, it's eternal, and call it God, call it, you know, I'm more of like an empiricist. I'm kind of like, I don't like the category of God, because it smacks of the supernatural. And what I think that we're dealing with is the natural, but we just can't explain it. We lack language, and we lack empirical validation. There's things we just can't know. Like, there's just no way for us to figure this out, at least in our lifetimes. So we just have a void, and we end up just speculating about it.
So I'm with you. I hate the term. I mean, I love horror movies, but in a practical sense, I hate the term supernatural because if it's here, it's natural. We just don't understand it. And I
Exactly.
love the Simpsons episode when Homer's smoking pot and he knocks on Flanders' door. Flanders got the, or not Flanders knocks on his door and he's got the Bible, and Homer's like, "Could God create a taco that's too hot for God to eat?" And if God is omnipotent, the answer is actually very easily no. And it's not that God isn't all powerful; it's that a taco too hot for God to eat, in this case, is something that can never exist. That would be supernatural. God's not limited. God is or the universe. I mean, whatever it is, whatever term we use, it's the encompassment of everything that is and can be. And if it
Well, here's
exists
another
in,
thing too. Here's another thing too. I really want. Sorry, I'm going to ADD
no,
past
no,
this, and I'll never come back if you keep going. But I think this sort of anthropomorphization of God is a problem too, because just that thing that you just said. Can God create a taco so hot he can't eat it? It's like, I don't think it's a he. I don't think it's a, like we like to. If you look at
it
every
is the same
religious
thing. I
tradition in
mean,
the world, their gods always just happen to look exactly like them, right? Like we have this sort of, and it's built
sure.
into us somehow. And I don't think that's the case. And I think when you talk about a concept like God, it is so, like you said, so massive, so beyond our ability to understand and to, codify in language that just that sort of breaks down. You might be talking about like a logical contradiction or something like that. Can that exist? And my answer is like, I don't know. Like, I've been on such deep psychedelic trips where I've had my brain twisted in such ways that I'm like, I'll probably tell you that, yeah, maybe somehow it's possible, because it's too wild of an experience. If you've had, I don't know what you've done or anything, but I've had
I,
some like 10,
I don't know
12
who's
plus
watching,
gram.
so I'll.
Yeah, it's fine. Like I don't give a shit. So I'll say it. I've had 10, 12 gram experiences that have completely reset my understanding of what's possible, and my position in the world and how we fit in. And it's I'm still struggling to sort of compartmentalize and piece together what happened on
What
those
you went
experiences.
through.
Yeah, it's too wild.
So I think that there's a important sort of sidebar here that you just mentioned, talking about the anthropomorphization of God. It's not just God; it's everything. We do it, and you have to be dispassionately objective about things. Like, we anthropomorphize our dogs, and our dogs experience love for us in the way that a dog can, but it's nothing like what a human does. And we just immediately, there's always going to be a self-referential bias. It's
Hmm.
fine because that's one way where it actually helps us speak the same language. It's kind of through our own filters. But when you're really getting towards like, I want to get at the truth, I want to strip away all the layers, then you have to take it out. If there is a version of God or a manifestation of God that is anthropomorphized, it's working towards us, like it's a communication tool or something like that. It's not how God exists. But I want to get back to real quick what you said about the eternity problem for a theist, because it's not a problem for me. Because if God exists outside of time, then it's not that God always existed. It's more like God is. Like there's not an always. There's not a before and.
That's such a great point, and so I'm really glad you brought that up, because if you want to talk about just standard physics, right? So time is a very strange thing, and if you go back far enough, time doesn't exist. And the question of what happened before the Big Bang, like that's a nonsense question. That's
Yeah,
not the way time works, right?
yeah.
Time's relative, and it's within that sphere universe that we're talking about, this bubble universe that we live inside.
It's a
That's
measurement.
exactly, when you get beyond that, it's like that's where, like I said, the limits of our epistemic validation, like it just goes away. Like we don't know what that means, but I think that trying to continue that linear aerial backwards, well, what happened before that, what happened before that, and it's like I think that turns into nonsense exactly at that point the Big Bang started. That's my view.
So we're in agreement there. And so from a physics perspective, I think the idea of a I say, let's, instead of God, like a being, which is probably even still anthropomorphizing it too much,
A little bit.
but it simply is. And then you have this cosmic inflationary period and then the Big Bang. It could trigger that. And now it exists in these fields based on this information that it's created, and that's where physics comes from. And it's almost like coding underneath. And that's what I kind of think of, like below the Planck length is the coding of the universe. And that's what I would call God, but it's a coding that we can interact with in certain ways.
Have you seen the DMT laser experiments?
No. And that sounds like something I usually would come
Oh,
across.
I'm gonna blow your mind. So I saw it for the first time, I think, on Danny Jones.
Okay.
But there's a bunch of other his guest has a whole bunch of the YouTube videos on it, and apparently it is, and this is where I'm loving this, being an empiricist and a science guy. It's completely reproducible in every single human being, and so you can get these type of lasers. It's almost like a laser level from Home Depot or something, right? So it'll project this laser on the wall, and you smoke DMT, and you get up close to it, and you look towards the side, and you can see code. Every single person sees code, like the Matrix, like literally symbols and code and stuff. Like you're seeing the fabric of the universe, the information be displayed, which is wild.
Yeah, I definitely have to check this out.
Go check it out.
It plays into my its code idea plays into some of the experiments that we see, because in a strange way, a lot of the universe does seem to require observation, not to exist, but to choose the form in which it exists. So like the double slit experiment is the perfect example.
Yeah, but that's not as spooky as I think people think it is. And this is where I start to get a little bit standoffish with the quantum stuff, because I think people don't understand quantum mechanics very well, and they don't get what it means. I think this is kind of like the Deepak Chopra thing, like, well, if you don't look at the moon, it doesn't exist. Like, that's not the way this shit works. But
No, and
doubles
I'm not suggesting that by any stretch.
Yeah, so you probably know that the action is not looking at it, because people, when they hear observe, they think, well, I'm just observing it. Well, no, what it's actually the measurement, the act of measurement. Yeah, the act of measurement forces the quantum superposition to choose a position, right? And that's why you see that behavior as far as going through two slits versus one, right? And having the waveform versus the lines, right?
But it's like with Schrodinger's cat. Schrodinger's cat is either dead or alive at some point. We just don't know till we look. But with the wave experiment, it really is a superposition. Like, it is neither particle nor wave until it is observed. And I don't think it's as wild as we think, because if it's really information, it's like you write a computer code, but you don't get your GIF until I mean, that's a bad
compile
example. Yeah, exactly. And so then people are seeing code. It makes sense to me. Like, if we're able to manifest our own realities at some very small level, I mean, we are in other ways. Language in and of itself, and influence on other human psychology, and the way you can influence actions. There was an experiment done. This one blows my mind. So it was University of Chicago and Duke. And they had 30,000 students involved, 15,000 at each. So they had students go on a specific day for lunch, and they had 6 different options. It was like burgers, chicken sandwich, pizza, salad, hot dog, whatever, 6 things. And they just recorded what they got for lunch. 6 months later, they went into a lab and they picked a random card of one of those 6 things. And they found that they were 78% more likely to have picked the thing on the card in the past, the random card. Now, it's very hard to say time travel is proven from this, but it is very interesting. 78% is a significant number. That's the likelihood of what they picked in the past. And so when people talk about manifesting a reality, I don't think we're going to be psionic. It's not science fiction. But if we, and again, coming back to this idea that microtubules and consciousness are quantum entangled with this fundamental fabric in the universe, why couldn't we have some small degree of influence on the way things that have not already chosen whether they're a wave or a particle, end up what their final form is, I guess.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's I'm open to ideas like that. I guess I hold on pretty loosely to some of that stuff. When you get in that realm of, how do I know? I always ask myself, how could I test this? How could I figure this out? And I know you can do some form of that, the manifesting thing. You can probably do little experiments. My daughter's into that stuff, and she's very into this woo phase, and I'm kind of I don't know, because one of the things I know about people is that we're the easiest people to fool ourselves. As individuals, we're super easy to fool. We're super easy to get suckered. We're full of biases left and right that are very difficult for us to observe and be aware of, unless you're really, really aware of the types of biases you've had.
They're evolutionary programming. They kept us alive most of the time.
Exactly. So you're trying to shut off machinery that's running in you, that's kept you, our species and our ancestor alive for billions of years, preceding us. And so it's very hard to get around those. And so that's where I kind of like when I talk about these things, I'm like, I try to have fun with it, man. It's like people get so caught up in being right. And somebody will say, so like, we'll probably say this on the internet, and somebody in the comments will say some shitty thing to us, like, oh, you're so stupid. You don't know about this. It's like, I don't care, man. I don't give a fuck. I'm having a great time with this. I went through that phase when I was religious of being worried that I was going to burn in hell for all eternity. Like that's a hell of a heavy thing to throw on a little kid who's just trying to do their best to get, be a decent
Absolutely.
person and get through the
Absolutely.
world. And so now I don't have that belief. I find it much easier to be okay with being wrong and to like, hey, let's just play with the ideas. Let's have fun with this. Let's see. Like I don't know, man. Like we'll see what we can
100%.
figure out.
100% with you. Yeah. That's
Yep.
why I
So I
love the whole quantum entangled manifest reality thing, though, because one, it really isn't, at least at this point, it's not objectively falsifiable. There's no experiment we've come up with that you can ever get anywhere close to anything other than knowing that measuring that wave proton particle forces it to choose one or the other. But it does allow for some wiggle room that helps some of my other ideas, if that makes sense. And not crazy wiggle room. It's not like I'm taking some wild liberty. It's like, yeah, this actually could be true and it could all work together. And then through experience, and I hate lived experience as like a
it's my truth,
observational,
man. It's my truth.
and I know how ridiculous it is, but it's part of who I am. Like I can't help that all of the inputs that have gotten me to this point are going to influence how I think.
Yeah, it's inescapable, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And it should be. Like you are who you are because of I will say I'm a like 90% nature, 10% nurture person, but I think that 10% is all the things we think about of being human. I just don't think that matters as
Ooh,
much.
why that weighting? How'd you arrive at that weighting? Because I would probably weight it differently.
Yeah, most people would. Actually, do you know Phil Rain?
Oh yeah, yeah. He was on my episode of Free Show.
Phil's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
We've been
Phil's a cool
having this
guy.
discussion for a while, and we were trying to get this genetic evolutionist from the University of Minnesota on a podcast that we were going to do, and she was, and then schedules just kept getting mixed up, but we'll probably push again because I really want to like, because she gets into it and does stuff with people who like live on the water, societies that live on the water or on the coast, and how there's differences, but how a lot of it could be seen as nurture. It's hard to say, but this is my basic case. Like, so you start off 50% or probably more of what goes on in your body, you have no conscious awareness of. Your heart
I'll agree
beats.
with
You can't
that.
stop
Yep.
your heart from beating. Your liver filters. You breathe most of the time unconsciously. And then we get to the brain. And so, like, this is, again, the brain is like where I put most of my interest. When you think about the brain, we anthropomorphize the brain. We really do. Like, we put it into our feelings of consciousness. This is what your brain is. Your brain is billions of neurons and axons and trillions of connections that fire little chemicals or electrical signals many times a second in slightly different ways, responding to sensory information and the previous firing. And that's how we get everything. Like serotonin fires and acetylcholine fires, and there's a little electric there, and now we're on a computer talking. It's nothing more than that. We
What's
can,
interesting too, real quick, what's interesting too is that it's not one thing. So if you're
yeah,
familiar, like there's literally multiple yous inside fighting. And sort of like your prefrontal cortex sort of coordinates the whole thing and tamps this one down and pulls this one forward and sort of acts as orchestrator. One of the most fascinating experiments I've seen is the cutting of the corpus callosum in epilepsy patients. So the corpus callosum, for those who don't know, is the connective wiring between the hemispheres of the brain. And one side of the brain has language, the other one does not. And when they cut that and they sever the corpus callosum, it cures the person's epilepsy. What they find out is that now they have two competing separate people inside, separate consciousnesses
yeah,
that
basically, yeah.
literally, like the left hand will be like,
One
right,
side can
fuck,
safe work and the other one can operate it, but they can't both do it. It's
and
crazy to see.
they have different desires and they ended up fighting each other. The people that had this done ended up having their different personalities, ended up fighting each other about their wants and desires and stuff. It was so crazy beyond just that coarse-grained separation of the hemispheres. Within, each hemisphere, there's a whole bunch of other sub-personalities that are all being orchestrated to sort of fire synchronistically and operate as me, right? There's a sort of the default mode network that has this sort of like understanding of I as I, the coordinated whole, right? And people don't even realize that's going on under the covers. It's very
And
complicated.
then it's, when you say like executive function and executive function processing, that's how well your brain is managing all this. There's a little
Well,
part
that's the
start
higher,
and going
yeah,
crazy.
that's the higher order stuff. That's the
Yeah.
coordination, that's the planning, that's the breaks, right? For example, most of our
Yeah, how
stuff
it
that's
comes out.
evolved has monkey brain shit that's like, I'm gonna, if you and I are having a discussion and I want your sandwich, I'll go punch you in the fucking face and stab you in the neck and take your sandwich because I want it. And the prefrontal cortex is the break saying like, hey, I like Rob. Don't fucking stab him in the neck for his Whopper. That's not cool, dude. Like that's
So
what it's really the
that's a
breaks.
perfect segue into the next part of why I say 90% genetic. We think consciousness is really important. I would agree. I think the two most important evolutionary or two most important developments in evolution are fight or flight and consciousness. The consciousness is still just a layover in animal brain. Our drive and all those chemicals and electrical signals are to eat, to reproduce, and to die.
Yep.
Everything else is window dressing. And I don't mean to sound so cynical with it, because the window dressing, like I said, the 10% is the great part. It's amazing. But that our animal brain works just like that. And so there's a study done, I guess it was 2 years ago now, trying to find out what drove sentencing disparity. And they did a regression analysis of millions of court cases and put a whole bunch of different factors in. Do you know what the number one predictor of a longer sentence is?
I would have said being male.
It's wild, and when you hear it, it just makes sense. How long it's been since the judge has eaten?
No way. Oh, I guess that would have
And
been conviction then. I think that no, that's not true too. Because I thought I've seen like my buddy George from the Tin Men. He does a lot of men and boys advocacy, and he said he's done cross cultural analysis of people convicted of the exact same crime, and men by far get a much
sure,
harsher sentence. But
then get worse. A lot of places do have racial disparities. Poverty tends to have a big influence, but none of those studies include when did the judge eat as one of
that's
the
crazy. How do they
variables.
even? I can't even believe they're tracking that.
So the first one was done just proximity to lunchtime, and then they were able to actually record like when judges were calling lunch. So often they didn't know if they had had breakfast or not, but it was just lunch and dinner time, and by a wildly wide statistical range. A hungry judge is going to give you a harsher sentence. It's I mean, we can't say for sure. This is tough to prove causality, but
For
it
sure.
seems
Yeah.
that the frontal lobes aren't getting energy, so you're defaulting to your amygdala, and all of a sudden you're getting this wild emotional response, and you don't know it. We're not consciously aware that we're doing it. It feels right at the time, but yeah, that's why you get these longer sentences. And so the frontal lobes are the coolest part of the brain, to me at least. Like just so
That's where the magic happens, man.
yeah, that's where that metacognition comes in. That's what makes us human. But they're real small compared to the rest of the brain. Like when their influence dies, and they're also dependent on others. I mean, a sociopath is really just someone whose frontal lobes don't connect to the amygdala well. So everything happens normally in a sociopath's brain, but they have no emotional response for it. That's why they can beat lie detector tests. So that's where I get the like 90% nature.
That's probably fair. Now that you explained it, I think that's probably fair. I guess I'm more biased towards the nurture side because I had such a shitty childhood, man. And the people that I know and the people that I've met through this podcast, like Sarah Geving, who I've had on the show, her dad, sex trafficked her. He was a pastor of a church and did it at the church from the time she was 4 years old. Like the story is just tragic, right? And these types of things just fucking break people. And I was really fucked up by my childhood and have suffered all sorts of issues. And you can probably tell I'm not like a dummy. Like I'm fairly intelligent. I'm fairly self-aware.
I'm a
Pay
cocky
attention.
asshole. I wouldn't be on your show if I thought you were dumb.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I still struggle. Like, I'm still trying to get my shit sorted out, and I'm still carrying a lot of I'm 50 years old and I'm still dragging along a lot of shit that I haven't sorted out from my childhood, you know? And so I see, and maybe this is where like people that have what somewhat regular childhoods, that maybe applies, like that, like 10% where you kind of like didn't have the best childhood, but you didn't get severely abused every day. Like it feels like there's certain things that just totally break people in the nurture area, and I'm just hyper attuned to those because myself and people that I know, and even thinking about Virginia Giuffre, right? Like you look at her arc. She had a really fucked up childhood. She ended up being sex trafficked all over the world. Then she ended up getting the bajillion-dollar settlement out of the Epstein thing. Then she moved to Australia, and guess what? She attracted to her a shitty, abusive husband that beat the shit out of her, right? Like it's a tough life when you go through and have that sort of happen at a really young age. It seems like a lot of stuff, no matter what you try to do to overcome it, it just kind of clings to you. It's like part of just kind of baked into the outcome somehow. That's one of the most unfair things that I've seen in the universe.
Here's how I interpret that, and you can actually do it at a more basic level, because I think of those as like Six Sigma events, which I still think they fit the pattern, but you kind of have to look at each one individually because there's a lot going on that messes with the brain. But when you hear like girls marry their dad, guys marry their mom, that's not exactly accurate, but there's a lot of truth to it. What it is the relationships that you observe as a child are how it forms your base for understanding love and how love should be shown.
Yeah, you're talking attachment theory, essentially.
Yeah, I don't love attachment theory. To me, it's because I believe more like we're born with this capacity for love and this need to seek love. And then we're looking like, so what does love look like? It's more like an explanation, I guess. It's not, I haven't studied attachment theory deeply. And the bits that I've looked at, I've always, it's sort of
I get it, right? So I think
it concerns itself too much.
Don't think attachment theory is so bad. What I think is people turn it into something bad. They turn it into like their star sign, like, oh, I'm an anxious avoid, like that. People wreck it, right? So I think I've watched a lot of Adam Lane Smith. I've been trying to get him on the show forever because I want to talk to him about some of this stuff. But I've also talked to Dr. Edward Perrin, a bunch of other psychologists, and I think attachment theory has validity to it. To what degree, I don't know, but it definitely resonates in my life. I've gone to therapy and I've dealt with, attachment issues, and a lot of that stuff, the things that happened to me, the type of what I consider the attachment style that I was sort of immersed into, that all tracks for me empirically, and being able to change it, which attachment theory posits. You're not stuck. It's not like physics. You can actually work on it and change your attachment. Like all of that stuff seems to be empirically verifiable, and I think there's some truth to it. But like everything else, I never buy anything 100%. I'm always like, there's at least 20% bullshit in anything that you go into.
Always. Well, that's being a libertarian. 20%, just 20%. So I would explain it more simply, like a girl who came up with parents who argued a lot and then made up a lot. There are a number of case studies, and then this girl meets a guy and they argue a lot and she doesn't like it. She keeps going to it, and this girl or woman now will have 4 or 5 of these relationships subsequently. And then she'll meet like a great guy who treats her right. And within 6 months, she's over that relationship because she's not getting sort of the dopamine boosts, the acetylcholine feedback. Like it's not telling her this is a good relationship. And it's really like you've got this capacity for understanding love, and then that nurture conforms how your brain reacts to certain things that register as love. Just the same way, fight or flight, we learn things that register as danger, and that gets much more deeply ingrained. And so that's where the nurture argument is good to me. It's the 10% that's the most interesting 10%. It's buildings and airplanes and music and poetry and loving a sunset, but it's just such a small component of what a human is.
Yeah, you're not going to get any argument from me on that, man. That is definitely where the interesting bit is, and I always wonder too, like, are we being too generous? Because the determinists have a pretty good argument when it comes to certain things. Not everything is deterministic, I don't think, but I think potentially many more things than we suspect are deterministic.
Way more.
Right? Because we like to feel like we're in control of this meat machine, and this is where I think meditation has helped. If you ever try, because I mean, like the determinist will say, like, okay, well, what thought are you gonna be thinking in 5 minutes? And it's like, I don't fucking know. And then if you ever meditated, you'll understand that these thoughts and these feelings, these sensations, they just arise in consciousness naturally. And if you meditate, you start observing them. You're just like, oh, I'm not the thinker of my own thoughts. There's just some machinery that's bubbling this stuff up under the surface, and I'm not. It sort of tamps down the hubris that I'm the thinker of my thoughts. I am the driver of this meat machine. I am the captain of my vessel. I think that's largely bullshit. And I think we should have a little bit more humility about the ego stuff. Our egos tend to get a little overgrown based on what's actually going on, I think.
And that's actually why I go with the 90%, 10%. Is like, because that 90%, because it's nature, deterministic is a complicated term. Because when you say deterministic, you're to me, you're saying that everything is already mapped out. Like everything is going to happen the way it is. And I don't buy that at all. But deterministic in the terms of like, you're going to turn one way instead of the other. If you're not thinking about it, yeah, that's nature. Like we have things that are built in. My disagreement with deterministic arguments is twofold. There's a high level where I think like we have free will on big choices and we can ponder it. And I just don't buy the like Sikorsky argument that you were always going to choose that because of everything that went in. Well, sure, we have inputs, but you're going to make a decision. Because you would say like one person that came up in an exact situation went this way and one went this way, but they were always going to do that. Like, dude, you're stretching to me. And then the other is
I agree. Yeah, I was going to say, like, I completely agree. And I think that it is more, I think Dan Dennett gets it mostly right, where he's kind of like,
I
it's
have one of
more
his
like,
books. I haven't read it yet.
it's more like free won't, right? Like you said, these things emerge, like even the thought processes, and even if it's like very high order planning, like we're going to make a decision about financial transactions, like there's still when you get to a decision point, it's more of a and obviously that's a little bit different story, but just the basic decisions we make every single day, where we're going to go to lunch, what we're going to do here, where a lot of that is these things emerge, and then we make a decision at the point where a decision is required.
Yeah.
It's like it pops up and I have an impulse and I'm like, am I going to punch Rob in the face and take his Whopper? I'm like, no, I'm not going to.
Please don't.
I could, like I think there's that level, but I think to their point, a lot of the machines that inform that final free won't moment are deterministic in nature. We got these things that run in our DNA, these and it's very profound. These biological systems that are very, very complicated. There's even things like how our gut interacts directly with our brain, the gut-brain axis, the microtubules that connect those. Dr. Jack Kruse is huge on the light, right? The light and electromagnetism, the internal endogenous light. Like there's all of this.
Huberman, go outside and get 10 minutes of light in the morning because it
Do you know
changes
why?
your whole.
Do you know why Huberman recommends that?
Is it from Kruse?
Fucking Kruse. So I will tell everybody, this is one of my favorite podcasts. So there was a podcast, Rick Rubin hosted it, and it was 5 hours long, 2 parts to it. It's Tetragrammaton, by the way. And it was Andrew Huberman, Jack Kruse, and Rick Rubin. And
that's got to be awesome.
It is so awesome because Huberman is somebody that I looked up to a lot. I was like, okay, Stanford dude, very, very smart, very influential, says a lot of things that I already know to be true. I'm like, wow, this is a pretty sharp dude. And I've never sseen a man more humbled in my life than the spanking that Jack Kruse gave to him. Huberman was just groveling. It's like, hey, just teach me. I'm here to learn. It was shocking how much more Kruse knew. And by the way, Kruse is a neurosurgeon and Huberman's an ophthalmologist. But Kruse knew about things in the eye that Huberman had no clue about. And so it was very, very crazy. And Jack is such an odd character because he's such an asshole. Like he comes across so abrasive. One of my favorite episodes was on Danny Jones, and he and Mary Bowden. You know Mary Bowden?
The name sounds familiar.
Dr. Mary Bowden. She's been on Rogan recently. She was the doctor
yeah.
So it was Kruse and Bowden and Callie Means, and those two ripped Callie Means to pieces. It's one of the best podcasts ever. But Kruse comes off as like an asshole, but if you understand, he's got a big heart. And the reason he's that way is because he cares about people. He doesn't want people pushing bullshit, and Means is definitely a bullshit broker. But anyway, like he just gets very overzealous. You just have to understand that's who he is. Like that's just his personality, and I try to accept it, and that's what it is. But he's very brilliant. He's very, very smart, and his understanding of light and magnetism And it's based on Robert O. Becker's work, but I think he's ran with it a little bit since then. But it's a
And how it
fascinating thing.
affects
And
the brain, the blue light waves.
yeah, and to get
Okay.
into sort of what we're talking about, like we're thinking that we're running the show, and even things like these blue screens that we're staring at every single day and not getting enough sunlight on our skin and our eyeballs, that completely impacts the machinery, that deterministic machinery, the clock that runs our body, right?
100%.
And so
100%.
I think it's just, I
I
guess,
get in an ice
overarching.
bath every morning to hack my body.
Fantastic. That's a great practice that he also recommends, and I think it's a great thing to do. Saunas are great as well. There's a bunch of things we can do, but point being is that things that we're not even aware of can impact in a deterministic way the output decision that we might make. And so I think it's very wise to
Like how
not get
close it is
too
to lunch.
exactly. So very wise to not get too full of ourselves and think that we are this, oh, I'm so smart. I'm running the show here. It's like we're probably running a hell of a lot less than we think.
I do like the free will. I hadn't heard that before, because when I was going to give the small example, that's exactly what I was going to say, actually, is I'm drinking water tonight. And I went to grab a Coke Zero, and I was like, I know that's what I want, but it's not good for me, and there's caffeine late at night, and I'm going to drink water. So it was a free
Exactly.
want. I was able to overcome. To me, that's free will. Like, it's not a big, deep philosophical woe. It's just, hey, my body had a craving for something, and I was able to say no to it. And determinists would say I was in a position where I could say no, and maybe my body was more tired. Like,
Yeah, that's
maybe.
exactly where I was going to go. Like, what if you were, let's say that something happened, like there was a thunderstorm and you woke up at 4 in the morning, right? And also this week you got a really stressful thing going on with your job, and maybe that Coke Zero, it's like, fuck, man, I just need a sweet. I feel like I want that, right? And just in that moment, and you're stressed and you're thinking, and you're like, I'm coming to the podcast, but I'm not really thinking about my health. I'm focused on other things. You just grab it, you crack it open, you drink it.
I've made that decision many times too. To me, that's deterministic. It's like overcoming the deterministic impulse. That's why I like that free will, because that's a free will decision. It's not just going with what you want.
100%. And one of the things that's good news to maybe people that aren't aware is that you can strengthen that free won't, that muscle. So if you look at, probably know this data, the long-term meditators, they see physical structural changes in the brain. So you look at the amygdala. By the way, it's your fight or flight center. That's your fear center. That's your part of your brain that if something bad happens to you, you recognize that thing as a threat in the future and does that threat scanning. That shrinks by like 60% for people that did a course in meditation, like 12 weeks or 14 weeks, daily 30-minute meditation. And also the prefrontal cortex of the brain actually gets larger. That sort of
It's larger.
executive function, that ability to impulse control and arrest, that actually grows over that same course of time. So we do have the ability to intentionally, improve our ability to, do flex that won't side of that free won't.
And there are other ways to do it too. Like, so the ice baths and then the saunas, definitely, because you're starting to create a constant supply of norepinephrine and dopamine as opposed to relying on it to be produced. And then just choosing something that you really don't want to do every day that's hard and forcing yourself to do it will rewire your brain similarly. It sort of starts to give that deference to the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. That emotional response has less control.
Yeah,
I'm
that's that.
trying to go. I'm trying to give my amygdala more control. Like, I don't want to think. I just want to. No.
Bold choice. No, but there's actually a part of the brain, I forgot what it's called, like nucleus accumbens or some crap. I can't remember the
Yeah, the
name of
nucleus accumbens.
but Huberman did a scan of David Goggins, and that part of the brain, like you talked
I
about,
saw that.
that do hard things part of the brain. He said his was the largest he's ever seen. It was like three
Yeah,
or four
I saw that.
times this. I'm like, damn, that's crazy. It's body's interesting, man. We think we're static, we think we're immalleable, but it's like, dude, like there's a lot that we can change.
Well, then this. So coming back to language, this gets into some psychology stuff, and this is what the KGB and the CIA figured out. And choosing language in a certain way can really influence how people behave. And
Definitely.
I've gotten good at this. And I like my wife is sort of my conscience in this. I talk to her about it because she always says,
You're
she's like,
you're
you're
using your
pulling
powers
strings.
for evil? Is that what's going on?
Well, I'm telling. See, that's what she says. No, I don't. I try not to. I really try not to. But I'm in a position where it is often the case that I see potential outcomes, and I am very immediately aware of how easily I could influence different outcomes. And so now everything I do at that point. Have you ever read The Doors of Stone, the science fiction? It's a crazy
I'm
thing
not
where
a
there's this.
sci-fi guy. I'm a nerd, but somehow the sci-fi thing just missed me, man. It never hit me.
This would be more fantasy, Lord of the Rings style. And I read a lot more psychology, but I got into this one, and the main character finds this tree in this plane you're not supposed to go to. And the tree has two things. It is pure evil, and it sees all of time. And so anything it says to someone is designed to influence some evil event later on. And once you've seen it, you can't get away. I wish I was that cool. It's much smaller scale for me, but it's like, if we want this person to go to lunch, like if you call and say it this way, 9% chance you're going to get this person to go to lunch. But what I've discussed with her is like, I can't help but know in certain situations how to influence an outcome. So then I inevitably influence it, even if I don't do something. So what I've come up with is when I get into a good conversation with someone, especially the first time, I make a point to pay the person a sincere compliment. And like no strings attached, no trying to get something from it, except to say like, hey, I really do see you. This seems important to you, and I want you to understand that. And I try to leave it right there. So then it's like, maybe I've established some trust, but I'm really not influencing a further decision, except that like I might influence further decisions later. I don't know. I'm still working through this one myself, because the ability to influence people, even at a small scale, like I don't claim some huge power, but at a small scale, when you're aware of it, is a strange thing. I don't know. I can be uncomfortable with it sometimes.
That's fine. It reminds me of somebody, I can't remember who it was, talking about ways to get people to do what you want by using language. Like, for example, if you want to get information from your Uber driver, right? Like, you, instead of asking them, interrogating them, you can actually get them to divulge more with a statement. So you could say, "Oh man, cool! You drive for Uber. I was reading last week that Uber is the best company in America to work for," and they'll be like, "What? What are you talking about? Let me tell you this and this and this. Everything wrong with Uber, right?" And there's ways that you can manipulate
That's
people that
fine.
way. Just and it's a thing, man. You use it for good or evil.
Part of it is understanding the person. So one of the things that cracks me up is programmers, developers, whatever it may be, IT people who want a problem solved will go to an IT board. And instead of asking the question, they'll post a solution that they know is wrong. Because if they ask the question, they will not get an answer. But if they post the wrong solution, within
Those
minutes, they'll
damn
have the right
autists,
solution
man.
done. Yeah. Yeah. They can't leave it
Can't
alone.
help ourselves. Yep.
Like, so if you're watching, if you want to like connect with someone, there's a couple things you can do, and it doesn't work as well. I don't think I'm on. I mean, I've been diagnosed ADHD. I don't think I'm
That's a
autistic.
spectrum, technically. Spectrum.
Yeah,
Me
the
too.
whole attention processing, executive processing. But most of the people I'm close to in my life are autistic, and I think it's because they're a lot harder to manipulate, and so I don't feel, and so then I'm not trying, and that's just. So if you're not with autism, if you mimic a person's body language and repeat some of the same words that that person said, if you make one self-deprecating joke, and if you touch that person one time in like a friendly way, they're yours. Like that's all it takes. And it doesn't work for everyone, but it's like an 85% rate. It is pretty crazy how easy it is to build trust with someone based on nothing more than mimicking their language and movements and one touch.
Well, you're not helping me at all, because my day job, I'm around autists 24/7. I'm telling you what, computer scientists, the engineering people, autistic as hell, and I'm a libertarian. They're autistic as hell. I got nowhere to escape to, man. I don't know what to tell you. It's not
That's why
helpful.
I love my autistic friends. I touch them. Like, where the fuck you touch me? But it gets
Oh,
even
jeez.
crazier. So like I've in college and after college, I served in bartending. I think I learned more about human behavior in those years than anywhere else in like a crash course. I studied later and got the definitions for things, but so right after 9/11, well, right after the invasion of Iraq, really, 9/11 was different. That was actually, the country was kind of cool with each other for a little while. That was the last time I can remember. But right after the invasion of Iraq, we had the whole, and if you weren't there, the French did not want to invade Iraq with us, and so Congress, being super useful, changed French fries to freedom fries
I
for the
remember that, man.
congressional.
Fucking freedom fries, baby.
So I worked at a roadhouse. Every time someone ordered fries, they would say, "I'll get French fries," and I would say, "Don't you mean freedom fries?" Without fail, I could tell someone's politics because I got one of
Mm.
two responses. Like, oh,
It's like
my bad. You're right. You're right. Freedom fries, America. Or, oh, that's a good one. Freedom fries, right? I didn't change anything. They just assumed.
It was just like the COVID shit with the mask, no mask, like the teams, the teams just instantly identifiable.
100, that's what it is. It's putting on a uniform. And so when I saw that, I was like, I wonder if there's like a way to get better tips here. So then what I started doing, if someone sat down and had some college apparel on, a shirt, t-shirt, hat, sweatshirt, whatever. Kentucky? Did you go to Kentucky? I did. I just graduated there last year. Like, did you know Mrs. Watt? Then the next table, like, oh, you went to Tennessee. They're not listening. My tips went up 25% from that point on.
That's crazy.
It's like this whole, like, the team, the human psychology, the need to, I don't know, connect. It's evolutionary. I mean, prejudice is evolutionary. It was much safer to not trust the person from the other tribe first than it was to trust the person from the other tribe first.
Well, also, I think there's a lot of baked-in protection there that people aren't aware of because historically, before we knew germ theory of disease, we would sort of encounter tribes that we had no
Yep,
contact
yep.
with, and then all of a sudden everyone started dying, and you sort of assumed that it was the juju in the sky that was killing you, or their gods were striking you dead, and ultimately, to keep ourselves safe, I think that prejudice of the fear of the other, that's how that all arose. Unfortunately, that program still runs in all of us all the time.
There was a study, and this one fascinates me. It's the University of Chicago, I think. And I need to look it up because I was talking to someone else about it too, and I meant to look it up again because I forget the original intent of the study. But the design of the study was that they had 3 rat colonies. They had a white rat colony, a black rat colony, and a spotted rat colony. And they taught a select number of rats from each colony how to open a trap from the outside when a rat was trapped inside it. God, I forget why they were doing this. It was some economics thing, totally unrelated. But so they start running the experiment, and something totally unexpected happens. The white rats will help the white rats, the black rats will help the black rats, and the spotted rats will help the spotted rats, but they won't help rats of other colonies. And they're like, did we just discover that rats are racist? And like, it's probably more complex than that, and it's one experiment, but a little bit. So then they mixed all the rat colonies. And lo and behold, then the rats would help rats of any color because they had now experienced them. And I think there is probably some level of translation with human behavior. We find something to identify with other people, and then the connections build around that. And it can be religion, it can be race, it can be politics. And I think that that's like a potentially good and beautiful thing done in the right way. But when it becomes the other is my enemy, and now you can manufacture the other as an enemy, and that's where you get, these Trantifa terrorists are coming from us, or all these Christian nationalists want to take your, I don't know, like whatever nonsense each side is spewing
Let's
at the
take it
other
even
side.
more prescient. Let's take an even more prescient example. Marjorie Taylor Greene is bad now. She's bad. She's not part of our team. Thomas Massey,
Yeah,
fuck him. He's
yeah,
out. He's not
yeah,
MAGA, right?
yeah,
That is an
yeah. He's not wearing
exact
the red
perfect
jersey anymore.
example.
Yeah,
Exactly. You are not one of
100%.
us. So yeah, that's a
And on
real
the other
thing.
side, Fetterman. They're being a little more quiet about it, but they do not like Fetterman. And for what? Fetterman, I mean, I don't subscribe to his politics, but he's an old school union liberal. Like that's what a Democrat was 20 years ago, all the way. Massey has become like a libertarian icon recently, but the truth is he's a conservatarian. Like he's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
pretty standard conservative, but he's got principles. And that's how bad our politics are, that we're like, oh, this dude has principles. Like we like him. I don't agree with his principles, but he's got principles.
Principles aren't a thing anymore. I've really noticed this, and I think when I had Adam Johnson, the lectern dude, on my show, he taught me a lot about populism that I wasn't aware of. I think it's because I'm such a principled guy, and it's not just that I am personally care about ethics, non-aggression, all those sorts of things that underpin libertarianism. But even when I thought things differently, or when I was older, or sorry, when I was younger, it was like Democrats were a thing, and they had certain principles. Like we care about the little guy generally, right? Like we're not really down with the big business. We want small business. We want to help out people that are at the bottom rungs of the socioeconomic ladders. We care about, we're not down with the racial discrimination. We want everyone to, like, there was these certain principles that Democrats were about, and they were anti-war, for example. We were pro-free speech, and then Republicans were like, we are
Yeah,
law
free
and
speech,
order.
yeah.
We're pro-police. We're pro-military.
Pro Second
We are,
Amendment.
yeah, and there was predictably, when you looked at somebody from one of these groups, you could say generally, like you said, with a couple of things, data points, I can know a bunch of things about you, like your example with freedom fries,
With a
like
high degree of probability.
high degree probably. Now you pick a random Democrat or pick a random Republican off the street, I think I have about a 2% chance of being able to pick out one of their top 10 issues. Like they're all over the map. I think it's been so intermixed, and it's become just this populist thing where every group, both these major groups, can become the opposite thing from one day to the next. Trump is all of a sudden socializing the means of production. We're seizing the means of production. We got, taking a stake in Intel, and we're doing
Redistributing
and raising taxes on, like, I don't know if you know this, but the tariffs that he's imposed, the single largest tax increase in American history
No,
outside
Brett,
of wartime.
stop it. Trump is reducing the tariffs because he cares about cost.
God, it's just mental to me, man. But
hey,
it's just,
so
we don't have.
take the opinion out of it. Trump is a fascinating political figure, like as a study. I mean, look, so was Stalin, But
you sound like
right
you sound like
now,
my wife when she wants to talk about studying Ed Gein and like Ted Bundy. It's like a
I
fascinating
love
study.
that stuff. I love it.
I
I
do
love it. I have
not.
books on evil and why do we do bad things and why do people follow.
I look at those people and I don't want. It bums me out to know that Donald Trump exists in the world, or an Ed Gein, or a Ted Bundy, or a whoever.
But here's the thing: there's tons of Donald Trumps in the world. Why did people follow that one? That's what interests me.
Well,
Wyclef
that's where you
Jean
get
has a
into.
line that's amazing. Every man has disciples. What? Say what? Anything could happen. But every man has disciples. Donald Trump has a lot of disciples. There's a lot of people that try to mimic Donald Trump. There's a lot of people that try other ways. And there have been other people who have had sort of a similar rise ascendancy. What is it about those people? Is it just the right time? What's the factor that we're missing?
I really, and I think
I
it's.
think about all.
I talked to Helen Pluckrose about this a lot. She studies
Yeah, she's
authoritarianism.
good.
I love Helen. She's great. And I think this goes back to it's the time, like you said. I think it is human beings want different leaders for different time periods. And human beings tend to gravitate towards a quote unquote strong man when things are weird in the world and things are unstable and things are scary. They want the authoritarian leader. They want the strong man. I think that people in business and in politics gravitate towards a Trump type figure because I'm the strong guy. I'm making the decision. You're fired. Remember the Apprentice days, right? Like, I'm just making a decision. I've learned from being in these major corporations that the further you go up, they don't get any smarter. They really don't. But you can
Occasionally
rarely,
meet the
like,
one that's like, and those ones tend to be good people.
boy, I'm on the fence about that because there's people that I looked up to in the industry, right? Like, I know Elon technically has produced or at least led some fantastic engineering feats, like, just no doubt, like the shit he's done with
Without question.
SpaceX,
Without question.
fantastic, like it's incredible. And you have Jeff Bezos at Amazon, right, with the cloud services, and obviously all of the stuff he's done for speeding up delivery and selection and lowering price, like fantastic achievements. And then I see these people that rise to the top, and I'm wondering, is like, are they all psychopaths? Because I just looked through the Epstein files list, the drop from the other day, and like all of these people were going to dinners with him, like way after his fucking conviction. Man, he's already a sex offender, and they're all meeting with him still. Like, when everybody knew, Bill Gates fucking founded Microsoft, and guess what? He's still over there. He lost his marriage, man. He threw away his
And
marriage.
she just recently said it was because of Epstein.
Yeah, 100% was, and so I wonder, like, are the people that end up being at that top just destined to be shitty people, and we just have to accept that? I don't know. Open
So
question.
I wasn't referring to the people at the very top in my experience, but there are people near the top, and when you meet someone there who's really smart, because most of them, like you said, often they're not even as smart as some of the people. They're just better at playing the game. But
Well,
when you meet
also, you look at
people
the
near the top,
psychological profiles. Like, real quick, you look at the psychological profiles. You're probably fairly familiar with the 5-factor model of personality, right? The Big
yeah,
Five. And so
I
most of those.
I actually don't like it, but yes, very
Oh,
familiar.
oh wow, we can talk about that sometime. But those people tend to be very disagreeable, right? Very low in agreeableness, and they're very high in conscientiousness. These are the people that will literally work 90 hours a week flat out, reject every other aspect of their life, just be shitty husbands, shitty parents. They're just like unidimensional. They're strictly focused on next level, next level, next level, achieve, 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 achieve. Those people seem to be like sled dogs in a certain sense, that they just have to have a load to pull and they will just continue. There's no off switch for these people. That I've seen it personally. I know these
Yep.
people exist.
With
Um,
CEOs of a couple different big banks are like that where I worked, and yeah, 100%. I mean, I coach high school wrestling, and we had a camp last night, and watching Tom Brady do a motivational speech, and his whole thing was like, it's not always the most talented person, it's the one who's consistent, keep showing up. And that's kind of the same thing with the CEOs. They push it a little bit harder, and there's some talent.
Definitely, but they also appear to be clustering psychopathy as well. Like that seems to be comorbid with that personality as well. Like there's something
It's
broken in those
prevalent.
people's brains. Yeah.
It is prevalent. Because once when you can justify, so I hate like the ends doesn't justify the means. Sometimes the ends justifies the means, of course, if the means isn't hurting anybody. But they begin justifying means that require compromise of sort of accepted morals, and they have no problem with it, and then it just gets easier and easier to do. There's this book I'm reading called Evil, and it's really looking at like it does 3 case studies. It looks at street gangs in LA, it looks at the Nazis, and it looks at serial killers, and it looks at the psychological profiles that allowed them to become who they are. And there's generally some common factors, not across each one, but is it a mob mentality? Is it individual? Were you born with no frontal lobe and amygdala connection? Or did you just start justifying our survival instinct kicks in? A lot of the stuff Nazis did, and not that I'm justifying it, make no mistake, but people don't realize the people that were doing it, the soldiers right there, not the SS, but the people on the ground, their justification was, well, it's better him than me.
Mm.
And that's a powerful justification. That's a hard one to get over. So then when you look at like why do and Trump's interesting in that perspective, in that he's been uniquely good at getting people to follow him, but why do people follow any leader? I read what did I read exactly? It was like I just loved Kamala so much. Like I cried so much when she lost, and I can't imagine thinking that
No, you
of
didn't.
any.
No, you didn't. I don't believe that. I believe zero
You don't
people
think that
had that response. Oh, okay, okay, I take that back. I think people would have that response in the oh shit, orange guy is going to be
because
running
the fight
things,
or
and
flight is triggered. Like you're being
yeah,
told
yeah.
you're about to die now.
What I mean is like when I think of somebody like a Ron Paul, right? Like in our world that was running in '08, and he was like, it's like, man, if he had won in 2008, I would have had an emotional response to that. I would have been like,
Yes,
fuck
to the
yeah,
win.
that is amazing. I've never heard anybody say anything like that about a Kamala Harris or a Joe Biden. There were always the candidates that were like, well, it's not Trump, but like anybody but Trump. That's kind of the vibe. I've never met another human being on the street, and I've talked to a lot of people that are very left leaning, and they all tell me the same thing if they're being honest. Like, I'm punching the thing for this guy, but no, I don't like him at all. He's terrible.
Some people said it about Obama.
Said what about Obama?
I mean that like he was best president ever, and we love Obama.
Well,
And
that's
in his
different.
defense,
He had
he's a
he had some
charismatic dude.
charisma. He at
Yeah,
least could
yeah.
put on a good speech and had some charisma. He could hold a press conference. He dressed nice, like Biden walked around. His brain was a fucking bowl of oatmeal. He finished up a speech and just zoomed off like a Roomba, just lost for the next 10 minutes. It was
Finished off his
hilarious.
speech.
It's
And that
ridiculous.
feeds into it. We went from 4 years of half the country pretending that our president was not suffering from dementia to now half the country justifying every illegal sociopathic thing our president does. And it's like revenge against the other side is more important than
That's
any
what it
attachment
is.
to principle. And
And I think that's where we're at. And this is what I always say is that everybody right now is afraid to leave the gun of government alone. Leave it on the table. If like you and I are across the table from each other and there's a gun, everybody wants to be, I'm gonna grab that shit first because I don't fucking trust Rob. I don't trust Rob at all. Like I'm
and
snatching the
you
gun.
should. That's the rational thing to do.
It is, except for the fact that that gun that we're talking about, the metaphorical gun of government, gets passed back and forth every period of
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
And if you point it at somebody, especially if you use it against somebody, you best believe when they grab theirs, they're going to do
They're
twice
gonna
as
shoot
bad
back.
to you. And then it's going to be an escalation. And that's what we see today. And that's why I think populism exists, because everybody's so petrified of what happens. You have to figure, like, okay, which fucking large group, like, which team do I most fit in with? Okay, I'm with these people, because if those motherfuckers get it, and then when they get the gun, there's this weird celebratory phase where it's like, I saw this when Trump got elected. You're like, oh fuck yeah, you did this to us. Now it's our turn. You get the
Yep.
lawfare thing. We're
Yeah,
coming after you.
it's like a bloodlust.
It's just torches and pitchforks, man. And I saw that, and I cautioned people against it. Everyone told me to shut the fuck up. And I'm like, okay, well, let's see how this plays out for you. And here we are.
Have you ever seen the Ash conformity experiments?
I've heard of it, but I have not seen them. I haven't read
I
anything
might
on
have
them.
mentioned it to you. I might have said I would send it to you. I've forgotten to send, so I will send. But
I
so
actually, maybe I do. Tell me what it is, because I think I might. Is this the one where people just deny reality to fit in the group?
yeah, with the lines, and they say everyone else
Yes,
says.
yes, and because
So,
everyone else says it first, they'll actually deny reality. And so, even though the line is clearly twice as long as the
yes,
other, or whatever, they're like, "Yeah, it's actually B." Yeah, I remember those. Yeah, that's
and
tracking now.
that's so if you're watching the experiment, and all the experimenters are in the room, and the Confederate is brought into the room, unaware that everyone else is participating. And so there'll be like a whiteboard, and it'll have a line on one side and three lines on the other, and one will be longer than the one on the left. And there's each person has to pick A, B, or C, which one is longer. And they'll pick the right one the first few times, but then the rest of the experimenters will pick the wrong line. And after two or three times, something like 80% of the time, the Confederate would start saying the wrong thing just to fit in. And that's how powerful this drive to like achieve some sort of social, I don't know, peace or whatever it may be.
I
And
don't
I
think it's
think that,
necessarily peace. I think this is actually. I think there's some utility to this from evolutionary perspective, because
oh,
I
yes,
think
yes. So
I
go ahead. Yes,
think
I agree on that.
yeah, I think the benefit of being connected to other people is that we keep each other sane. We
Yes.
rein each other in. I think this is why people like, Ted Kaczynski and these folks, like, they just get completely isolated in the cabin in the wilderness of
Solitary
Montana. You go
confinement. People go crazy.
you go crazy. We're a social creature, and I think that our job, our function in our tribe, is to reel people in that are slipping. It's like, oh, you're thinking that you're talking to the rock, and it's telling you to kill your family. Like, hey, let's have an intervention. Let's pull you in, brother. You're slipping, right? And so I think there's this baked in thing that we're not even aware of. And I think the experiment shows it very well, that we're primed to sort of go along with the tribe. And I think Jordan Peterson conceptualizes great. He's always like, look, a great strategy is to do what the group is doing, unless you have a damn good reason that you can articulate and justify why you should deviate from that. He's like, as a strategy, that's probably a pretty good strategy, right? Like, and I think that completely makes sense. And I think that's probably
I would
driving
never
that
work
type
in
of
a
behavior.
libertarian circle.
Oh hell yeah, and nor would I ever. I don't want to be. I don't know how you do it, Rob. I'm sorry. I love
Yeah.
you, and I know you have a bunch of listeners that are watching this, and I know that's not for me.
Well, no, I have like a pathological need to do the opposite of what people are doing, and I have to put that, like, do some free will and put that in check. Because I don't like, am I doing it just to be a dick? I don't know. It's just, to me, it's like, it doesn't matter if I'm doing what you're doing. Why do you care so much? And then I want to see how people react. But I think there's maybe a like deeper, older biological evolutionary component. Because I always think about when someone throws up and it makes other people throw up, it's likely a poison or bad food. And that sort of feels to me like the same sort of thing, just with the consciousness lens applied.
That's
I don't
probably
know.
fair.
I mean, evolution's a weird thing, but we start evolving in that way. It's like one animal does something that helps the other, and then it just expands through consciousness.
Yeah, and I've
But
thought
then,
about this a lot too. So real quick, like, I've noticed that there seems to be an arc to people that dissent. There's Because people are tribal and people love to follow others, but it's almost like a shit test for leaders. So I've noticed there's this thing when you are part of a group, and let's say you want to stand out, and the easiest way to demonstrate this is like maybe artistically. let's say that you are an artist and you're doing something that's so new, like nobody's seen this shit before. One of the things that comes to my mind is like System of a Down as a band, mix of Armenian folk music and metal, and it's like this crazy live act. It doesn't make any sense. It breaks categories. Like we can't put our brain around it. And you see it, and then people are like, "Fuck those guys! Like what? Why are they being so weird? Why are they being so different? Fuck those guys!" And then if you're the artist, and then you change who you are, right? Like to conform to what the group wants, then people almost reject you for that. But if you keep going
Yeah,
and you
you lost
keep
authenticity.
and if you look at the group and say fuck you, I'm going my own way, I'm doing this like it or not, and then I think there's this aspect where humans tend to say I respect you, right?
Yeah,
you have balls, you've rejected the group's judgment of you, you went and did your own thing, and then they start to vibe with it, and then there's this like outsider endearing effect that happens. We're like, oh, now I'm kind of endeared because these people are quirky and weird and different, and they start following them. That's a real thing, man. There just seems like there's like this escape velocity that has to be achieved with somebody that decides, whether it's like us, like being dissenting thinkers and just eschewing the group think and moving outside of it. I think there's this friction involved in it, but once you get escape velocity, then other people want to come with you.
see, even there, and maybe we can jump into sort of, can you really, like, is metacognition real? Like, is the brain limited in considering itself? Because I always think about, was it Socrates, the unexamined life is the life not worth living?
Yeah.
It was one of the old Greek. But so I can improve this, and then maybe that can help the world. But if I'm not improving this, I should stop trying. I love the Bible, like we were talking about earlier. Remove the log from your own eye before you remove the speck from your brother. Excuse me, I'm about to start coughing.
Well, now I'm gonna start coughing.
That'd be pretty funny. There's something there. So we have like I was going to go with internal and external locus of control, but it's really more like a sphere of influence, and there's person levels and there's stuff levels. I can mow my lawn, that's not as relevant, but the primary sphere of influence for a libertarian, the smallest minority, is yourself. And through our thinking and the way we think we buck the trend, we very much, it's not that I don't feel comfortable with these groups, it's that I know I'm not part of them. But then as I reflect, I have to think, like, am I full of shit? Like, am I just this other group that doesn't want to be part of groups? I would say it's more likely than not. Like, I get real comfortable when I'm hanging out with libertarians because they're going to be speaking a language that resonates with me, and I don't have to argue about things that I think are stupid when I'm arguing with other people. I don't have to get frustrated with like some super status stuff. Like, no, we should, like, when I hear they're not paying their fair share, like, I want to claw my ears out. But that's a
I don't.
popular phrase.
I have fun with it. I'm always like, oh, what is the fair share exactly? Can you quantify that for me precisely? What is that? And how do you know? Like, and then people just their brains break them like, shut up, go away. Like, okay.
And it was a Walter Williams quote. And quick aside, I knew Walter Williams.
Oh, no
He was
way.
teaching at George Mason. He was teaching at George Mason when I was there. I studied poetry writing and psychology, and it was actually my dad that was like, you should go check him out. Did a couple guest lectures. We had coffee a few times. We were like good buddies, but knew each other. Even nicer person when you meet him. But he turned me on to Austrian economics, like, because I was a libertarian from the beginning, but it was more like, don't tell me what to do. I want to cause trouble. And then he gave me the economic side of it. But the fair share thing, I don't know why. Because I agree with your argument. Like, so what's your fair share of mine? Like, how much of mine belongs to you? But it doesn't. They're just like, no, we need equity. Like, communism is good. Communism's like on the rise. That's how we know our schools are failing.
Oh boy, I think anybody who intentionally sends their children to public school, that's my least libertarian position. They should be thrown in jail. Like that is a jailable offense in my view. Like why would you do that? I don't understand why anybody would send their kids to a shitty government school at this phase of our arc. It doesn't comport.
That's the key part. That's the key part. Like, if you live in grass huts on a field and have nothing else, then a sweatshop is a good thing. It is an upgrade. Like, we're always trying to increase productivity, increase innovation, but where we are on our arc, when schools, I mean, I know it's the Prussian model. I know why it went in, but when they were first implemented in the US, they probably really did serve more of a good purpose than a bad one at that time. And as it has evolved to this power chip that can be weaponized for one side or the other side in all sorts of political arenas, yeah, I'm with you. If you're sending your kid to public school, like, stop, please stop. Like, if you love your kid, don't send them to public school,
And I
please.
hear so many bullshit arguments too. Like, I can't afford to. It's like, yeah, you can. I think that people in America have got really skew, and I'm not unsympathetic to how expensive things have gotten. But I think if you're going to have children,
Sure.
you should have this sort of agreement that, like, look, number one of you two is going to stay home. Doesn't matter who it is. Like, somebody's got to go kill something and drag it home, and somebody should stay home with your kid. I don't think that it is appropriate to outsource the raising of your children. I know this is a very unpopular, position to have at this point, but it's like, dude, like, I always liken it to, imagine like your anniversary, for example. Like, let's say you're gonna take your wife out to dinner. You got plans, and 6 o'clock rolls around. You're gonna go to the house or go to the restaurant, and all of a sudden, I say, like, honey, something came up, but I got Doug here.
You could
Doug's
call
gonna.
red to date.
It's like I phoned Doug, and Doug's going to take you out on our anniversary dinner, so it's going to be fine. It's like no, you cannot substitute a parent for like a kindercare worker, like a minimum wage kindercare worker, or even if it's a Montessori school or whatever you're doing. Like, you're just sending your kids to be raised by strangers. I don't think that's a good thing for people to do. And I think people, if they cut back their lifestyle, which is what Americans don't want to hear, it's like, God, we lived for less than $1 a day, in today's terms for forever, like, people, yeah, it's hard. It's you have to not drive the fancy car. You have to, go without certain luxuries, but it's like, dude, do you care about your
Family's a
kids, or
luxury.
do you not?
That's the luxury.
Yeah, it's a thing, and you should be doing that. And I think you should, if you put your kids in public school, it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you. That's something that it's like, if you haven't read like Edward Bernays' work, like learn about propaganda, learn how it makes its way into your educational system and how you're poisoning your kid's mind. Like, it's abusive in my view.
And it's a cycle that reifies itself too, because
Yeah.
I have issues with the right and the left in different areas. But in education, I have a much bigger issue with the left, because, and I don't want to talk about CRT and all this other stuff. It's postmodern philosophy. It's the primacy of subjective thought over objective thought. It's the idea that lived experience is more important than statistics. It's the idea that if you feel you deserve something, then you should have it, or you are somehow being oppressed. It is a Marcuse like fever dream of language designed to create just anxious, unstable, unself-sufficient psycho. They're not psychopaths because it's not clinical, but they're just like all the time. And that's what leftist schools do. And then they point to someone and say, there's your enemy, and look what you have. And that's what the teachers do, and the kids. You have kids rebelling against their parents, good parents who weren't paying attention. Like, I'm not big on, any indoctrination, like Pledge of Allegiance or whatever. But that's a lot less bad until you get into war stuff. But we're
Yeah,
not quite there yet.
No, I would agree. I think the worst part of postmodernism is denial of truth, right? Like, they say that, yeah, the objective universe exists, but you can't know anything about it. Like, it's all, and also, not only can you not know anything about it, but human beings, like, everything is just power games between groups of people. That's all it is. And language is used to obtain power. Like, that's that's the lens that they view through. That's the most pathological
Yeah.
worldview that I can think of. And it also handicaps people like you and I, people that are empirically minded, people that do have a solid philosophical, structure to build from on the foundation. Like we're handicapped because we can't even talk to these people, because we're trying to establish fact and truth and all these sorts of things. And they're like, I'm not interested in that. All I care about is like Mao, like the power emanates from the barrel of a gun. I want to know how I can subjugate you so my group can be attain primacy over your group. And then it gets weird, because then you start talking about intersectionality, and you start talking about tribal membership, and which groups do you belong to, and how do those things fit the hierarchy of oppression. And like, it just turns into, like you said, people turn into an anxious spiral. And I think we see this manifesting on fucking TikTok all the time. We got these blue-haired crazy people that are spiraling on like whatever the latest injustice of the day is. And these are not, these people are not well. Like, they're clearly unwell. And I think it's springing from having that shit pumped into their brains 24/7.
So I've always been libertarian, believe it or not. Like I didn't change at some point. I came up, my household was like traditional Republican. The ideals of small government, self accountability resonated to me. And I got to high school, went to a Catholic high school, and I always say this, and people are surprised because I'm not some gay rights activist. All lives matter. Everyone deserves equal rights, but I believe it. Like everyone, there's no exceptions. But in high school, the issue that I could just not get past was gay marriage. Because I was like, you say you're for small government and non-interference, but you won't allow two adults to enter into a contract, essentially. Like, that is mind-boggling. And then I saw people go into jail for 20 years for smoking pot, and I was like, well, the Republicans are bigger hypocrites than the Democrats. I didn't know what I was. I knew how I felt. Like I said, I was sort of this rebellious, you're not going to tell me what to do, libertarian. And then I watched the 97, 98 debates and Ron Paul. And it was like the clouds parted and the light came down.
Yeah,
so then I got
boy. He's like a gateway drug, man.
Yeah, and a very good one. But so now I'm in college. I'm majoring in psychology and poetry writing. I'm in the arts community. It is very leftist. I'm surviving on Reason magazine, like, and it's really like, I mean, I'm having
I
fun
can
with my
smell
friends.
Nick Gillespie's leather jacket through the screen.
In the 2000s, he was a god to me. I mean, for real. But I remember I think it was a composition class on modern philosophy. So we had to read modern philosophy and we had to write our arguments on it. And I wrote an essay that intersectionality was the single most dangerous philosophical concept ever, that it was worse than fascism, that it was worse than communism, that it was worse than radical religion, because the only thing that mattered was the subjective and relative position of one person based on some characteristics to another. There was no morality whatsoever. And it was like, well, if a Muslim throws a gay off a building, who's lower on the oppression hierarchy? Like, what? Maybe we just don't throw people off buildings, but that's not acceptable in intersectionality. And the more I'm reading it, I'm like, wait, people believe this? Like, this is driving decisions? Fortunately, intersectionality tried and did not take hold. Other bad parts of postmodernism are certain there, but you hear intersectional stuff, it's not driving things the way, because I got real worried. This is like 2001. I was like, this is terrifying. I did not do well in that class.
It had a good run, man. Like, I think that we had a huge rise. I think it started about the first time I started seeing it really manifest is about 2012, but I know it started about '09, sort of working its way from academia into the culture. The corporations really bit onto it around the COVID times. Like, that's where I think it peaked. I think it peaked in 2019, 2020. And I think we're seeing the the pushback to it now. So I think maybe this is to be charitable to Trump. And maybe it's not even him. I think Nick Fuentes might be driving most of this. Like, there's a lot of people. And I'm serious. Like,
I know.
I'm not a fan of Nick Fuentes, man, but believe me. But what I think he is a little bit of a foil to that. I think it's good that the pushback is happening, but I am disturbed at the manner in which the pushback is happening. We saw the stream of verbal abuse from people about you're this phobic, you're that phobic, you're right. Like, all the people got this message that basically, fuck you, you're a terrible person. And there's this Kafka trap that's built into critical social justice. Robin DiAngelo was great about this. Her books and her like speaking tours and stuff. She was great about this, which is like, look, everybody who's white is racist. You just have to deal with that. And the question is not whether you're racist. The question is, how did it
Where's
manifest
the
in
and how did it occur?
yeah, exactly. And she'd give the thought experiment, which is like, black and a white customer come into your store at the same time. Which one do you take care of first? If it's a black one, then, oh, you're afraid that they're going to steal from your store. And that's how it's manifesting. But if you take care of the white customer first, then you're racist because you're preferentially treating them. So that Kafka trap was so persistent that in people, the more you tried to do to exonerate yourself, and then it was like, oh, that's white fragility. And then it's just, no matter what you do, you're labeled with this thing. It's the original sin. You can't get out of it. And so I think there's a certain group of people that said, fuck you. You're going to call me this, then guess what? I'm going to own it. And now I'm praising Nazi, like Nazis and Stalin. And I'm like, I'm going to say the N word on my streams, and I'm going to push back and be edgy just to say, fuck you.
Yeah.
And so I think there's some utility in that generally, meaning like, hey, like those people that are said those really horrible things about some really great people, like that should be pushed against. And maybe that's the only way to do it. Cause I mean, I know we all tried, like the people in our camp, the Brett Weinsteins of the world, somebody I would put in that camp.
Yeah, for sure.
James Lindsay before he went a little off the rails, and Helen Pluckrose. Those are all great people, and they diagnosed the issue. Peter Boghossian was part of that crew, and you try to push back, and they would have the street epistemology and these debates with these people out in public, and just like we realize, like there's no antidote to this. There's no rational way to talk to these people. They're literally crazy. And so maybe Nick is the antidote. Maybe somebody like Trump is that thing that has got to slap that stuff down. But it appears to have gone away, or at least gone into hiding or remission or whatever you want to
A
call
lot.
this.
Well, because it's also unsuccessful. So I got two things for that. So one, a side story. So I won't say where I was working, but I did a fairly new job, and I had to take the mandatory DEI training. So I'm already like,
here we go.
Fine. And it's a half day, and I go in, and the woman's professional, but she's like 26, just out of college. And she, white chick, she knows everything.
I know the
older
type.
than she is, much more experienced. And I'm being an asshole. Like, sarcastic, rolling my eyes, like not giving answers. She's like, why aren't you like this? Because it's stupid. So finally, she's getting frustrated. This has been going on for an hour and a half. And she's like, let me try something different. She's got like it's not a whiteboard now. It's whatever, those digital. She puts her slide
can't say
up
that. That's racist. It'd be a dry erase board, sir.
Oh, yeah, touche. Sorry, Candy. No, so she puts a slide with 4 squares on it. And it's got, one is like a white dude in a suit in a corner office. It's like a thugged out black guy, but like a corporate version of a 1980s thugged out black guy, wearing like a leather jacket and a gold chain. And
okay, got it. Okay, thank you for that visual.
And then like a normal looking, like standard clothes black woman and Asian woman. And the lady leading the class goes, which one of these looks like a CEO? I was like, the black guy. And she's like, no. And I go, whoa.
I told you, Kafka trap. You can't
handle that level of racism. I'm out of here. And I got a letter the next day that I didn't have to complete the course anymore. I was considered passed. So,
jeez,
but
man.
I did get involved, and Lindsay actually, and Pluckrose and Boghossian with the fake science papers.
Oh, those are
I was
great.
like, it can't be that bad. And then I read those papers, and I was like, it's that bad. And I was involved in the fair, and I was doing stuff to push back on it. And people in the movement that met me were surprised, because I'm really not conservative. I'm very much like let's throw shit at the wall and see what sticks, and maybe I'm throwing myself at the, I don't know, there's some truth to that nihilism part. And they were surprised. They're like, why are you doing this? And I was like, because as bad as this is, when the pendulum swings back, it's going to be worse.
Yeah.
That the only way it works is if this is worse. And sure enough, it's worse. And then maybe we stop it now. Maybe the right momentum is there. But if it goes further, then it's have you ever read the Butter Battle book by Dr. Seuss?
I have not, no.
So maybe the book I recommend more than any other. 12 pages long. And it's like the feeds and the ends. I forget what the other one is. But one group butters their bread butter side up, and one group butters their bread butter side down. And that is such an unacceptable travesty to the other side that they consistently build bigger weapons until they both have world-destructive weapons pointing at each other based on which side their bread is buttered. I was like, Dr. Seuss got it 100 years ago, but we keep doing what we do, and we allow things like postmodernism and fundamental nationalism and religious prejudice when a religion's supposed to be about love, but it's like, well, yeah, we love, but we love them by killing them. And then we
it reminds me of Life of Brian.
You
ever seen Monty Python's Life of Brian?
Well, of course.
It's
always
total
on the bright side of life.
But like the thing with the flip flops, like the way they want to like follow the leader, number one, and then they sort of grasp onto a certain thing, because Brian ran away and left his flip flop, and so they all started wearing one shoe, and they would carry around one flip flop, and it's like, dude, like, yeah, so it's the butter bread thing. It's humans are just that way. I don't know what to do with that. That seems to be a terminal.
It is, until we. So I give a course, and I've given it probably like 6 or 7 times now, mostly in North Carolina, but a couple other places, like 45 minutes, and it's called Winning Hearts and Minds, or How to Stop Being So Damn Libertarian and Talk to Normies. the hardest thing in the world for libertarians to do is to put aside what they believe is principle and have a conversation with someone where they disagree without saying you're wrong. And you have to do that. If you go in and say you're wrong, you've created a debate. You put distance, there's a shelf. You should go in and say, help me understand. And then tell me something about yourself and let's discuss more. And then it's like, oh, that's an interesting idea. I see what you're trying to get at, but what happens if this happens? And it's a process to win people over. But if you don't offer them that, then what people will do is go back to the tribal element. And that's where you get, like, mob mentality is a real thing. And there could be 500 people doing something that every single individual in there thinks is totally wrong. But because they're all doing it, they're doing it. And that's what politics is, a mob mentality popularity contest. I don't know.
I don't know the way forward, man. Like, I keep thinking about how to get, from A to Z, and I don't think there's a way. Like, I know that you're running a political organization. I'm talking to the wrong dude, but I've thought about this forever because I've gone through the arc of, like, trying to convince people. And it's like, maybe if I just bring better arguments. I don't think there's a way that Americans suddenly decide to embrace liberty. Like, I think they hate it. I think they generally hate it, and it's okay to say that. It's okay to accept that. And I've gotten to the point where it's like, look, it's I'm very much aligned with the agorist now. Like, okay, like I'm working on the homestead, moving my family out there, becoming completely self-sufficient, and then in parallel, like, I'm going to still have these conversations. I'll still make the case. I will still encourage people, like Ron Paul said, like, hey, we'll try to set a great example, which I think libertarians are terrible at. Set a great example and put the arguments forward and then hope for the best. But ultimately, I don't think I'm not seeing America on this sort of like cusp of some, revival to where they're going to like, oh, I think freedom's a great thing. I think people hate the responsibility that comes with the freedom, and that's really what turns them off at the end of the day. And so, no logical argument is going to get to a place where, wait, what do you mean? I can't just blame all my problems on a politician. Like, that shit's easy. I can elect these idiots, and I can heckle them and throw tomatoes at them all day and say my life sucks because of you. But it's like the eating candy versus like a whole foods diet. It's like, like, people don't want to do the things that they know they should do, but they're averse to them. And I don't think that seems like an intractable.
Hard for me to choose water. Like,
seriously, it's like, it feels like it's an intractable problem for me because Americans have been so, you think of a lot, and a lot of it's not their fault. To go back to the deterministic argument, it's like our leaders have, we had the world's reserve currency. We could export our inflation and live beyond our means on a credit card. Everybody could have this great standard of living. And then now you tell people, it's like, well, actually, we ran up the credit card. We put a Mercedes, we put a Lamborghini, we got 2 McMansions, and we just like,
and we stopped making stuff.
Yeah. And we just like, well, we have to drop our standard of living. And Americans are like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't. And especially if it means more effort from me. Like, I have to actually work harder for less stuff. Fuck you. That doesn't seem like a good deal to me. And I don't know there's a great way to, like, convince people that that's a good thing to do. And I think the crash is coming. This is the worst part. We're going to be caught unaware when that thing finally breaks. I don't know what that level is. We're at 38 trillion now. We're adding $1 trillion of new debt every 60 days. That's the current rate, which is fucking terrifying. So it's going to break at some point.
Can I, to put it in perspective for people watching, 1 million seconds is 11 days. 1 billion seconds is 32 years. 1 trillion seconds is 31,700 years. And that's what we're adding every 60 days. Please continue. It's mind-boggling how big that is. We can't comprehend. The human brain can't comprehend.
Well, I'm going to double click on that to make it even more accessible. So from George Washington until Barack Obama took office, we had accumulated $4.7 trillion in debt. We're going to accumulate almost that much just this year alone, depending on, I don't know what the rest of the year is going to be. Think about that for a second. Like, until Obama, the guy who came before Trump, 4.7 trillion, and we're talking about 40 now. We're pushing 40, and we're accumulating 500 billion every month in new debt. It's like, so point being, like, the math ain't mathing. This is going to crash. I don't know when this thing is going to break, but what scares me is that empires that crumble based on imploding under their own weight of debt, things don't go well. A failed nation state like not intentionally, not an intentional move towards anarchy or a free market, like it just having it
A
happen to you.
collapse. A
It's
collapse.
a collapse is the worst thing that can happen because number one, Americans, like I said, are very soft and they're very not self-sufficient. And we saw what happened under COVID. We got a little preview. We got a little preview when the supply chains break down and people start hoarding stuff and people are fighting at fucking Walmart. Now imagine the supply chain ain't getting turned on anymore.
There's no
Like
food.
there's no food, there's no water. Like it's going to be
Medicine,
really
yeah.
dire. And then people are going to start being real shitty. You talk about the mob mentality. It's going to be like Walking Dead. It's going to be crazy shit.
It is. That's why those
And
shows get it, that it's the people, not the zombies.
exactly. That's a message from The Walking Dead, and I think that this is coming, and I think that people aren't going to like it. I've been encouraging people for decades now, literal decade after decade, like, hey, let's not do this. This is really bad. This is coming. My kids are tired of hearing. I've been telling them since they were toddlers. I got a 24-year-old now, and I'm like, she's like, yeah, you told me this was coming when I was like 3. It's like seeing this coming, and I don't see. Not only do I not see anyone moving away from it, I'm seeing an acceleration into it
An
where
embrace. And
yeah, where
that's
where
what's scary.
the conservative party, Republicans are the worst. Like one of the
Yeah.
stats that is insane to me is talk about the debt figures. Donald Trump is responsible for almost 25% of the overall debt that America has ever accumulated. Think about that. 25%, and he's done that in just over 4 years. He's had a 4-year
Yeah.
term, and we're not even through the single year of his second term. So we're less than 5 years, and 25% is accumulated under him. And most
an
of the debt,
absurd absolute amount too.
yeah, and he wants more. Like he just wants more and more and more. And it's like, holy shit,
Yeah.
man! Like we have no
Because
conservatives. There's no brakes. It's all gas, and we're heading straight into a brick wall. And I'm like, guys, like okay, like I really have to be like, I'm with the agorists. I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm like, I'm gonna go take care of me and mine, and I urge you all to do the same because it's not looking good. This is not, the math doesn't work. There's no cutting your way out of this. I think Trump, this is what I get. One of the reasons I'm so angry at him is that I think he had a moment. There was public support,
in his first
massive
presidency.
no, I'm talking about his second one because like his first one was a goddamn disaster, but the second one, where think about it, like on the campaign trail, he campaigned like Ron Paul. He even had deference to Ron Paul. He's talking about come into Doge, we're gonna cut, Elon's gonna cut, and there was a real support, and people were like, "Fuck
It was like,
yeah!"
this is a tipping point.
It was a turning point. Yeah, not to use that Charlie Kirk term, but like it literally was a turning point where because we were there, we were at the edge, and it was like, okay, if we could have done that Ron Paul thing, where it's like, we're going to cut to the fucking bone. We're going to talk about Social Security. We're going to talk about Medicare. We're going to things that are traditionally off the table. We're going to do some massive changes to it. We're going to restructure our debt. I think we would have been in a decent position to turn the corner.
Stop
and then
printing money. We're realistically not going to cut taxes at first, but we will wind them down. That gets 100%.
Yeah, all these things, and you could have gotten a momentum to where people would have, like bondholders, like foreign governments, would be like, actually, I believe in the dollar. Like, I will buy American treasuries now, and I think that maybe. But really, what you see in the bond market now is that like all of the people buying bonds are like, America is just not paying us back. Like the money they actually pay us back with is going to be worth so much freaking less than when we lent it to them that I need a higher rate of return. So we're seeing the bond market disconnecting from the Fed funds rate. Usually when the Fed drops rates, the bond markets kind of go with it. The yields go down, and like we're seeing it kind of go the other way. It's not really happening the way the Fed normally cuts rates.
In 10 years, we've had an inverted yield curve after happening like twice ever before.
Yeah,
that's
crazy.
Pretty wild.
Absolutely crazy.
I try to white pill you a little bit. Not all the way, just a little bit.
Wait. I got to say, because Amity always tells me I'm black pilled. I'm not black pilled. I'm white pilled as hell. I
didn't take
only.
you
So I say, this is why I say I'm white pilled, is that this is why I say she's black pilled, and other people that are still holding on to the idea that government has a solution for you. I look at those people, I'm like, okay, I love you. I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this, but there's no solution there. Like the white pill is letting go of believing government has a solution for you. Like you just get the right politician. If we get 200 more Massies in, then everything, like, no, like, even if, like, you just can't. This thing is destined to fail. You cannot fix it. So the white pill is accepting that fact and saying, as a collective group, okay, what are we going to do about it now? What do we build? Now, this thing over here doesn't work. What are we actually going to build? And that's where I think the white pill is. And I often get, accused of being black pilled. So continue.
I didn't think you were I got no doom and gloom whatsoever. If anything, sort of a ruthless pragmatism, at least in terms of what's coming. And you said one thing that I've actually been saying for a while and completely agree with. Like, we're at a point now, it's uncharted waters. It could happen tomorrow. It could take 100 years. Like, there are so many forces at play. International, what do investors do? Little things matter. The war machine can definitely prop stuff up and drive it for a while, but that makes the crash worse when it happens. Like, so be prepared for sure. But this is what I have discovered recently, and I think that is starting to work. And I think we're starting to see the Libertarian Party take it seriously. I think uniparty devotees who hate what's going on are starting to pay attention. So as a human being, so my base argument for human behavior is there's only one factor in human behavior, and that's incentive. You do what you're incentivized to do. And you can be incentivized to go towards something or against something. And that manifests as, I call it inspiration, but it's positive, love, whatever. You move towards that. You move away from fear. In any given moment, fear will always be more powerful. But if you are consistent, inspiration over time will win, because people do not want to be afraid all the time. And when fear disappoints them constantly and inspiration delivers, that's where we beat the fight or flight. That's where the anxiety goes away. And it's worked in smaller levels. And what I am seeing, and not as much as I'd like, not enough that I'm telling you this is going to save things, but if there's a chance, it's that people are getting sick of this fear, of this being told by one side that the other side wants to kill them. And that's to the point now, is like, the Republicans want to kill you, the Democrats want to kill you, they're your enemy, you must kill them. And it's losing its luster, because people are talking to each other again, and they're like, oh yeah, we both like the same band, like, I don't care who you voted for anymore. And that's where the power disappears. And once the mystique has been taken away, to me, that's our opportunity. Like, hey, they have power because you gave them power. Like, power is, and this, now we get into a little philosophy, but like, we live in an anarchy for real. People don't think we do, but the base state of nature is anarchy. Everything that is going on, we accept. This is a decision we have made to go with this as a powerful decision, huge psychological implications. The social contract may not be real. That doesn't mean it has influence. But what that means is we can make the decision to take back our power. We can say no. Like we say, you can just do things.
Oh, God, I love it. Oh, dude, that is such an underappreciated. Yeah, this is such an underappreciated thing. I want you to. Yeah, and so you can just do things. Let's put that to the side. And I think this is where my plea to libertarians and right-leaning people that claim to care about liberty in some sense is like, we got to band together. And this is where libertarians are terrible. It's like, we want to have this, and this is partially autism, and it's like, we're going to fight about the minutia of who's the most pure libertarian. It's like, guys, like, we can fight about that when we get there. Like, if we're on, cut everything back to like this minarchist state, and now we're going to fight about whether, like, let's cut each other's throats then. Fine. I'm fine stabbing you in your throat when that time
especially in the
comes.
libertarian world.
yeah. It's like, dude, like, that's a big problem for me. And then also, I think all the energy that I see spent online fighting with each other about stupid bullshit could be spent doing like Bob Murphy with his book Chaos Theory. Let's talk about solutions, because I think like, the arguments are so worn out. The tire tread is so thin on both sides of the arguments. Like, well, you have to have government because of this. Nobody's thinking, particularly, maybe it's just because I'm in tech, I'm thinking of like all the ways that technology in a free market could replace what the really critical service that government provides, like policing, for example. Oh, you don't want a giant government monopoly with Palantir and all this sort of surveillance shit. Like, okay, well, maybe we, try out some companies, let them compete. How about figure out what consumers want? Because really, ultimately, policing, it's so critical, but it's so simple if you strip away the drug wars and all the unions and the bullshit from it. It's like, look, I need somebody to.
Crimes.
Yeah, so you protect person, protect property. You got a dual mandate.
Got it?
And if you had a federated police force, multiple competing companies that like the way a lot of EMT companies operate, right? Because a lot of these are not, your government running EMT. These are corporations or companies that are competing with each other, and they have like sort of service areas. But if they get called
So
out, like one from over here can
real quick,
respond to a.
I hate the term corporation because to me
I do
that's
too.
Corporations Act, which is a necessary company.
That's why I
So
said
yes, I'm
that's
with
why I
you.
said
I'm with you.
company. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a misspeak. Corporation is a state, apparatus, and I don't
yeah,
believe any of that stuff. So a company, you say, have like a private enterprise who is out there providing a service like policing, and you could
taking its
have,
own risk.
yeah, and you could have a thing where you have a service level agreement. It's like, okay, I got Pepsi Police Company, and they're protecting my house, and they're providing surveillance services, and maybe I give them permission to surveil me and my kids to make sure that they're safe. Right? We have an agreement, and if something happens and they get an alert, and some crackheads coming after my kid or something like that, and you alert, and company, Coke Police is actually a block away. There's companies do this. They have a shared response model. It's like, okay, so you show up, and then guess what? We pay you for that thing, and there's a vice
Yep.
versa. There's a shared.
Because we
You
look
could
better to our customer.
completely, and so you could have all of these things. You could just do things if we were allowed to just do things. If we remove the monopoly, then we could just. And I think there's a lot of things in healthcare. There's a lot of things, all the critical services that everybody's like, well, we just could never do it. We can now. I think the technology's there, and instead of staring down the abyss of a government monolith who is funding and controlling all of this massive rapid technology growth, if you had consumers who were in charge of that, and if you had a Peter Thiel up there who's like, I'm the antichrist, give me your money, and consumers like, fuck you, not over in a million years am I giving my money, I'm going with somebody that I trust. Like, and then also companies, I love the fact that they're profit driven, and they will stab the other one in the back. They will tell you the way the other company's fucking you. I don't have to worry about government transparency. I just have to go to the competitors, like, tell me what the
Yeah,
faults
they're
of this guy are.
much better at it.
And there's whole industries that would pop up, like Consumer Reports type of things. That's like my job, or my currency in this market is my reputation. My
Tell the truth
reputation
about
is
that
based
product.
on giving you a true analysis of the product. Like all these things. These are free market things. You can just do things. We could just do things if we were allowed to do things. And I think we fail to make that case. There's so much time spent arguing, zero time spent talking about solutions, and how can we actually do things better than the government, which is a low fucking bar. Like, doing better than the government
That's
is
the
a
thing.
low bar.
Do things and prove your case. Just go
Yeah.
do it and be better.
With
Because
all that
eventually
harnessed autism of the libertarians that I know, if you just direct that to something productive instead of arguing, my God, what we could do.
Yeah, and it's like, if you build it, they will come. Because
Yeah,
this is
dude.
where, so you said you think people hate liberty.
Yeah.
And I think people are afraid of liberty. And I think they've been conditioned to be afraid of liberty. They've been told you need safety. And if you don't have safety, you will die. But safety is an illusion. And I think in a sort of free marketplace of ideas, and very much the Supreme Court's idea of it, like, there's no propaganda, there's nothing weaponized against you, we just get to come to our own conclusions, then I think liberty does very well. Because well, you said people are afraid of accountability, for sure. Especially
Responsibility, personal responsibility.
Yeah. But what I think outweighs that, when all other factors have been removed, is you get to determine, like self-determination. You get to decide what you want to do for real. You get to be who you want. And like, that's only scary until you dip your toes in the water, and then it's like, why we're libertarian. It is liberating. Like, that's free minds, free markets, and it's the greatest thing in the world. That's the goal.
It's hard, though.
I think that's self-actualization. I think that's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
I completely agree, but what I think you're competing with is bread and circuses. This is like this hedonistic, like everything has been the way it is. Like, everything is pumped into your eyeballs. Everything that you want, like these sort of hedonistic pleasure type of, whether it's hyper processed food and fucking sugars and refined garbage, and then porn and video games, that stuff has hijacked people's brains to where some get out of it. There's some people that, you see these people online all the time that are coaching people out of it. It's like, actually, you know what? Not doing this shit is better for you. Yes, it sucks because you don't get the dopamine drip, but you can do some other things. And if you get up in the morning and you run and you lift and you do these things, eventually you're going to feel great, and it's going to be better for you.
You won't want to go back the other way.
Yeah, but it's like the marshmallow test, though. These people are like, "Yeah, but I want that now." Like, you're telling me that I get to this in 3 months? Like, fuck that. I want,
I tested
I think
both my
that's a
kids on that,
friction
and they
point.
passed with flying colors. So when they were little, it was awesome. So, and I probably should wrap up fairly soon. But
Yeah,
let me
I
end
was
with
going to
this
tell
thought
you,
on
we're at
bread and
2.5
circles.
hours. I budgeted for an hour and a half, and I knew we'd probably go long, but I got to get out of here too.
I
So
could
this is a
go
good time
4,
to.
but yeah. So
We'll
let me
save
end
it
with
for
this
later,
thought.
man.
So, as you said, it's bread and circuses. Bread and circuses only work if you need a distraction from something. If we can start chipping away at the thing that they are, this power, this fear that they're using, and then giving us bread and circuses to hide from the anxiety, that's when people are like, it's like the Mighty Mighty Boss Toad's lyric, "I'm not a coward, I've just never been tested." All of a sudden, you
Mm.
have to be tested. And I think a lot of people would find out they pass. So
Well,
that's my white pill.
that's a great place to end it, man. That is very white pilled, so I appreciate it, dude. It's been a great conversation, man.
We got to do it
You're
again. I love this.
100%, man. So why don't you tell everybody where the hell they can find you online?
Yeah, now I guess the best place is just Prosper, PROSPERCLT 2023. That's for my mayor run, but it took off. So that's my Twitter handle. ProsperCharlotte.com is my website, and I use it for campaigns, but I put all my other stuff on it. I'm the communications director for LPNC.org, Libertarian Party of North Carolina. We got podcasts, we got articles, we have this, and I should have had the name. There it is. We put up this link to this awesome new clothing company called Anarcho Syndicate Clothing Company, which I highly recommend everyone go check out this badass stuff.
I would
But yeah,
also
I tend
encourage
to
them. I've
probably
never heard of
resist.
them before. I have nothing to do with it. I'm not affiliated in any way, but I would encourage everybody to go check them out. All right,
But
dude.
yeah,
Hey,
that's it. If you look me up, I show up.
cool. Well, hey,
Say
thank
my
you
name
so
3
much, man.
times, I jump out of the mirror. Yeah, this has been awesome. I want to do it again. I want to get you on mine, and we'll talk soon.
100% anytime, brother. Take
Take
it
it
easy.
easy.
All right, we